the regular meeting of the Ross Town Council, June 16. There was a closed session that was held starting at 5:30. There are no reportable actions from the closed session. We are now in open session. The first item is open time for public expression. I think that one resident sent in something to read. Linda, why don't you start with that? Then we'll see if there are any members of the public in person or online who would like to comment.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This is from Doug Ryan. He says, "My name is Doug Ryan, and I reside at 74 Sir Francis Drake Boulevard in Ross. The point of this email is to put you on notice that should the town of San Anselmo proceed with the Baffles project in Corte Madera Creek, you are aware it is not a flood control project, as by design it provides no benefit in the event of flooding. You should also be aware that as a matter of physics, it is impossible to do such a project and be able to say with metaphysical certitude that it is absolutely water level neutral. In the case of a flood event, either San Anselmo Avenue or Corte Madera Creek will receive at least 0.1 inches more than would have happened had the project not been done. The town's approval of this project, should it happen, will make you liable in the case of a flood event at my house, and I will seek every means of redress available. It is literally the height of folly to spend $4 million to prep and install a temporary measure which provides no benefit in the event of a flood. Please contact me directly should you wish to discuss this further."
Thank you. Are there any members of the public here in Town Hall who would like to, who have a comment for the open time and public expression? Linda, are there any members of the public online who have raised hands to comment?
There are no raised hands, Mayor.
Thank you. Item number 7, the mayor's report. Mass shootings do not need to be an inevitable part of American life. In the 10 years between 2009 and 2018, 1,121 people were killed in mass shootings in the United States, and 836 more were wounded. The annual toll of all gun violence in the U.S. is staggering. Nearly 120,000 people are shot each year, with over 40,000 dying. The Centers for Disease Control reports that firearms have now surpassed car accidents as the #1 cause of death for children and adolescents. Despite repeated mass shootings and other firearm violence, no meaningful steps have been taken by Congress to address these tragedies. Citizens cannot simply accept this inaction around firearm violence prevention. Local and national groups continue to lobby for meaningful regulations to control access to firearms. 2 Ross families, the Morris-Soltero family and the McGuire family, recently launched a fundraiser for Everytown for gun safety. Everytown is a 501c3 organization whose mission is to improve understanding of the causes of gun violence and the means to reduce it. The organization, which has over 8 million members, was established as a merger of 2 groups focused on ending gun violence: Mayors Against Illegal Guns and Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. Its strategies include research, advocacy, litigation, and grassroots organization. Some specific goals are background checks on all gun sales, regulate assault weapons, prohibit high-capacity magazines, raise the age to purchase the gun, waiting periods between gun purchase and possession, prohibit people with dangerous histories from having guns, extreme risk laws, these temporarily prevent someone in crisis from accessing guns, and building awareness of the importance of secure firearm storage. Thank you, Emily Morris and Julie McGuire, for organizing the very successful event on Ross Common on June 2nd to raise awareness about gun violence prevention. Please consider joining Emily and Julie in making a donation to Everytown. The next item is staff and community reports. Oh, sorry, council committee liaison reports. Are there any council committee reports? Councilmember McMillan.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm very sorry I was late. I was at the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority meeting, and I was waiting for the board to approve the vote for the Greater Ross shaded fuel break, which we did at about 5:50. And we also received a really generous grant from CAL FIRE that will pay for more than half of that shaded fuel break and will allow it to be constructed in 3 years instead of 6.
Thank you. And then I went to the first meeting of the City and County Services Subcommittee that was formed by MCCMC many months ago. As you know, this committee was formed because there were many asks of cities to help fund services that are pretty much countywide. There's some concern about which services should be paid for by the cities and which services should be paid for by the county. That was discussed some. More importantly, the whole concept of an MCCMC subcommittee and its authority and staffing was discussed. And there will be more about, how these sorts of committees should be formed to begin with. This one may not continue, but certainly the topics of who asks for what in terms of money is an ongoing topic. Then staff and community reports, starting with Town Manager Krista Johnson.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I have a few updates for you tonight. This morning, firefighters responded to a 2-acre grass fire off a trail near, and I know I'm going to get this wrong, Bon Tempe, thank you, Reservoir, just outside of Fairfax. The fire started at 9:30 a.m. on the Sunnyside Trail near the peninsula of the lake. There were no threats to residents nor to any structures, and it was contained as of 11 a.m. The response was impressive. It included a CAL FIRE helicopter, 4 Wildland fire engines, 1 fire engine from the Water District and from Roth Valley Fire Department, hand crews, a bulldozer, all in total 67 personnel responded to the fire. The incident is under investigation. It's likely that the fire was caused by a human being, possibly by someone that was smoking. So residents, especially our neighbors, may have been distressed to see the smoke and hear the sirens of all the responding emergency vehicles. And the fire was put out quickly, and that's an excellent reminder that wildfire is a threat and that we must try to prevent it and prepare and respond to it. So a good place for us all to find information on this very important topic is the firesafemarin.org site, all one word, firesafemarin.org website. So hopefully we can all take care of what's happening on our own properties. A bit later tonight on your agenda, our Planning and Building Director, Rebecca Markwick, and the town's Housing Element Update Consultant, Andrew Hill, will provide a status report on the Housing Element Update project and provide a little information about an upcoming community meeting they've been working on. Next week's Advisory Design Group meeting, also known as the ADR, their meeting is on June 21st, and it's going to start an hour early at 6 p.m. due to a heavy agenda. This meeting will be held via Zoom only. However, the July 11th meeting will be held in a hybrid format with 2 options for participation: in person here at Town Hall or via Zoom. The Roscommon Pathway Pavement Project was released for bids today, and assuming we receive an adequate response from contractors, our Public Works Director will be bringing a recommendation to the council at your next meeting in July for award of contract, so we can get that work started, underway, and hopefully completed before school starts. Speaking of the Roscommon, during your last meeting in May, a resident pointed out her safety concerns regarding people using electric scooters and bikes on the common, on the pathways there. And please note that operating mechanized vehicles on the common pathway is illegal. So our staff has ordered new signage, and that is going to be installed ASAP to remind park users of that prohibition. here are some fun facts on the new post office EV stations using data as of June 15th. So there have been 113 charging sessions totaling 179 hours of charging. 891 kilowatt hours have been delivered, resulting in 632 kilograms of greenhouse gas savings. Very impressive. So our pricing model is based on 90 sessions per charging head per month, which each of those sessions lasting 90 minutes. So 90 sessions per charging head. It's only been implemented for less than a couple of months. And right now we're seeing about 19 sessions per head per month. So that's much less than what our pricing model is based on. However, the average session is 95 minutes per session, which is a little bit more than what our pricing model was on. So we'll keep track of this. That also includes the charging head that's on the accessible parking space. And that was only used, out of those 113 sessions, that was only used 4 times. So if you take that accessible stall out of the calculation, we're seeing about 28 sessions per head per month. So still have a bit to go to get up to where we want to be, but just wanted to give you those facts. You are going to be seeing an agenda item on this topic in July or August, I can't remember which date, but coming up, and bringing back some of the issues you had brought up at your recent meeting. So I'm saving the fun for last, and that is we are looking forward to Ross's 4th of July celebration on, you guessed it, Monday, July 4th, starting at 11 a.m. The parade kicks off the event, and it's going to be followed by a picnic on the common. To join the parade, please contact Ross Recreation Manager Gretchen Kastets at GCASTETS@townofross.org. Also, at the risk of causing embarrassment, but I think it's fun to celebrate, I would be remiss to not mention and recognize 2 of our employees here this evening that I know of. There may be more, but I know of 2 who are celebrating birthdays. Gretchen's birthday is today, and Town Clerk Linda Lopez is not tomorrow? I got this thing that showed up from Joe Chin, which said Linda's birthday was tomorrow. All right.
Oh.
Well, I'm just ahead of myself. I'm ahead of myself that I had good intentions. So, yeah. We can thank Joe Chin on that one, but I was trying to surprise her, so I was like, oh, should I ask her to be sure? And then I wanted to surprise you. So anyways, well, we can celebrate Gretchen. Happy birthday,
Right.
Gretchen. Okay. And lastly, I'd like to turn over to Chief Pata now to provide an update regarding the police department's partnership with our schools in Ross. Chief Pata.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. It's a super important topic for me and for all of us, the relationship between law enforcement and their schools, especially right now with more than ever right now than with some of the violence that's been going on in our schools across America. These senseless attacks have impacted all of us, and it was it really brought it home in this last attack with reaching out to. Oh, it's okay. Wait. Ready to go here. So so I met with my team and with a conversation about everything that is going on in the world right now and how important it is for us to be vigilant and recommit ourselves to our job. Our officers here in Ross, they have more than a decade of service, and in those years of service, there's it seems to be endless, but very important amount of training that happens every year, and we repeat over and over again our response to different kinds of events, like the school events. Our officers have extensive training in defensive talking, as well as defensive tools to help them stop an attack, not just in our schools, but pretty much anywhere here in town. We're fortunate at the police department that we have one of our sergeants has almost 20 years of experience working in a school system, more than one school system. So schools present a really unique set of circumstances, and he's on top of it. He's also a training manager and helps us train the other officers. So we did have a conversation about our mission and our commitment to our kids and our school. I reminded them that our commitment is to never wait and to go in if something terrible is happening. That we've seen all kinds of things across the country where that was a huge part of the problem. So we've talked about that out loud. We've recommitted ourselves to that. So what we do right now is that we do, you probably see us around pulling cars over and all kinds of things in front of our schools, our preschools. We do that not just to be there for traffic reasons, but it also puts us right in the center of our school area. When we are not in front of the Ross School or the preschools, we're also running up to Branson and other parts of our town. And that's so that we can be as many places as we possibly can be, to be both a visible deterrent, but also to actually physically out there. So this past year, one of my goals was to establish a strong relationship with the school. And I met with the superintendent of the schools. We had regular meetings in February, March, April of this year. One of my suggestions was to reach out to a specialist who consults on school security. And I'm happy that they did do that, and they found somebody, and we were able to collaborate with this consultant and the schools. Some of that collaboration had us visiting the school on more than one occasion and walking the campus and being very familiar with it. Some suggestions were made. I think they're still working on it. There's a lot of things that have to happen to make the school maybe a little less desirable, a little less physically interesting for things to happen. We've had some bike thefts and things like that, but we really want to harden the campus as far as not make it look like a jail, but make it a little less easy to get into where our kids are. One of the things this last year I also did was participate with Marin County Schools has a school law enforcement partnership program. That's a monthly meeting. We do it on Zoom, and we talk about the different issues throughout the county and trends. This past April, we had a drill at the school, and that was to test kind of our systems to see how our response was, as well as how the school's response was. I'm happy to report that everybody did a pretty decent job, and that was an evaluation done by the consultant that the school hired. Tomorrow, actually, there's another meeting that's happening talking about moving forward and some of the steps we have looking forward to this next year. And these are some of the things that we're going to continue to do. I'm going to host a day in August before school starts, where I'm going to invite my partners, College Police, Fairfax, Central Marin, and Marin Sheriff, to come here into town and to walk our campuses. It's important to know what the layout is before you get there, and it's never the same looking at a map. It's really important to actually be there and do it. Next week, Branson will be coming to the police department. They have an actual smartphone application that they would like to give us access to, and it's one of the reasons we purchased these smartphones, was so that we could integrate them with that we're doing here in town. Their smartphone app apparently has mapping and other information about the school on it that will be important to responding officers. We're going to continue to assist with drills and continue to participate with the school law enforcement partnership. And we have an officer that will be attending school resource officer training. It's not the official week program, but it's a day-long thing to help us with the special understanding, the special needs of our schools. And this month, in August, we'll be going through our yearly active shooter, active threat training put on by the Sheriff's Department and Santa Fe Police Department. So that's kind of what we're doing right now with the schools, and I wanted to check in with you because it's been a terrible month, a couple months.
Thank you very much. Councilmember McMillan.
Okay if I ask a question?
Yeah.
Chief Pado, my biggest fear when I was on the Ross School Board of Trustees was having all those children out on the Ross Common playing and road running on actually 3 sides of Ross Common. And I'm just wondering if that is on your radar in terms of preventative steps.
So I haven't read what the consultant has recommended yet. I know the report is done, and they've one of the things they're doing tomorrow is going over it. There is some concern about keeping the kids on the property, so that will come tomorrow. And if I have more information, I'll report it out to you.
Are there any other questions for Chief Plata? Thank you very much. Is there a report from Ross Property Owners Association?
Yes, it looks like Adrian is. Go ahead, Adrian.
Hi there, Council. Good evening. This is Adrienne Liggett from the Ross Property Owners Association. We have a brief report this month, but we are delighted that in the spirit of building community, we're going to restart the monthly leadership council. So we're going to be reaching out to the various entities within Ross so we can start working a little more collaboratively. They had stopped prior to COVID, and we'd like to get them restarted. We are also going to be starting and piloting a new resident welcome kits just to welcome everyone to Ross, let them know about the RPOA, let them know about the morning after newsletter, different businesses in town, and just bring them into the fold. Additionally, we are working on Live on the Common. That will be in August. We'll have more to report on that next month, but we are delighted to bring artists into the next Live on the Common. We'll have the Baywood artists who are going to be doing a show at the Marin Art and Garden Center. There's several Ross residents that are a part of that collective. And we think that will add a lot for the age-friendly group as well as all ages. And additionally, Beach, I believe you will be mayor at the next Live on the Common. So we would invite you to come up on stage and give a little talk and be present. We would love to have council have more of a voice at Live on the Common and share what's going on, whatever is the theme, whether it's the housing mandate or any other issues that are coming up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item 10 is the consent agenda. We will be pulling item A off the consent agenda. Are there any council members who would like to pull any other items off the consent agenda? Are there any members of the public who would like to pull any items off the consent agenda? And Linda, any members of the public online?
No, Mayor.
So then let's vote. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda items B through D?
So moved.
Okay, let's take the vote. How do you vote, Councilmember Breckus? Councilmember Kircher?
Aye.
Councilmember Cool?
Aye.
Councilmember McMillan? And Mayor Robbins?
Aye. And now item A, minutes from 5/12/22. Is there a motion to approve, or is there any discussion? Motion to approve?
Well, there was an amendment sent out,
Yes.
and I take it you're asking for an approval.
That the amended minutes.
Oh, okay, so moved.
All right, let's take the vote. And Councilmember Breckus is recused from that item. How do you vote, Councilmember Kircher?
Aye.
And Councilmember Cool?
Aye.
Councilmember McMillan? And Mayor Robbins?
Aye.
And the motion passes unanimously as amended.
Thank you. Item number 11, public hearings on planning projects, part 1. And part 1 is 15 Skyland Way, design review, hill lot permit and variance, and town council consideration of adoption of resolution number 2256, town planner Markwick.
Good evening, Mayor Robbins and council members. I am available for questions should you have any regarding the project at 15 Skyland Way.
Does anyone need any more of a description, or are we fine? Okay. Any questions from council members? The project, the owners or their architects are free to speak for up to 15 minutes if you like, and members of the public. Belinda, are there any members of the public online who are interested in speaking?
No, Mayor.
Okay, and I don't see any members of the public here speaking. And do the owners have any comments? There's no need to, it just if you do. Are there any questions for the applicant and architect? Then let's bring it back to the council level. Is there a motion to approve the project?
To approve.
Second.
All right, how do you vote? Councilmember Breckus? Aye. Councilmember Cool?
Aye.
Councilmember Kircher?
Aye.
Councilmember McMillan? And Mayor Robbins?
Aye.
And the motion passes unanimously.
All right, congratulations. Now we're on to the administrative agenda, item number 12. And this is a housing element update. Town Planner Markwick, please.
Good evening, Mayor Robbins and council members once again. As you all know, we are in the process of updating our general plan housing element for the 6th cycle. And one of our main goals in this process is to inform, engage, and solicit input from the residents of Ross. We will be having our first community workshop on July 12th, and Andrew Hill is here, and he will delve into the details of that community workshop.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca, and good evening. Yes, so work on the housing element update is proceeding apace, and we are gearing up for our first townwide open house meeting, as Rebecca said. So tonight I wanted to give you a sneak preview of that event and to talk a little bit about some of the things we're going to do to raise awareness of the event in the community. So the event will be held on Monday, July 12th in the evening, right here in council chambers. You're right, it is Tuesday. Excuse me, Tuesday, July 12th in the evening, right here in council chambers. We'll set up the room with a series of 6 stations. Each station will have display boards to share information with community members. It'll be staffed by someone to answer questions, and there'll be an interactive activity to collect feedback from participants that we can use in developing the housing element. The first station will be simply a welcome station. It'll have just boards displaying information about what is a housing element, what are the legal requirements, but we'll also have an aerial map of the town and pins, and community members can place a pin in the map to show where they live, and that will have a record of which areas and which neighborhoods in town have been represented at the event, and it's a nice little icebreaker activity. The second station will be about demographics and special needs groups. And so we've been reviewing census data and looking at what are the special needs groups in the community. For example, very interestingly, the senior population in Ross is growing rapidly. It's doubled between 2010 and 2020, and the over 85 group has nearly tripled in the same time frame. So obviously that suggests a need for caretaker units, has implications for the housing element, but that type of fact and figure will display on boards, and we'll have an interactive activity where people can tell us who they think the priority needs groups are, or suggest programs or actions that might be helpful to address the housing needs of those special needs groups. The third station will be the sites map that shows sites that are vacant or underutilized and available for housing, and will also indicate the capacity of those sites based on the current zoning. And then there'll be an opportunity for people to suggest possibly another site where they think housing might be appropriate, or to comment on any of the sites that are included on the map. The fourth station will be about the design of accessory dwelling units, and we'll have display boards that talk about what's allowed now under the town's current ADU ordinance. We'll also suggest some possible refinements and ask people for feedback. For example, when we spoke to ADR, we also did a focus group with local architects who have designed or built ADUs right here in Ross. They suggested some possible changes to the ordinance that could help facilitate ADUs under the right circumstances. For example, homes that are properties that are in the flood zone are required to raise the base flood elevation before anything can be built. But also with a 16-foot height limit on the ADU, that can become problematic. So there's a possible amendment to the ADU ordinance that could facilitate ADU construction under the right circumstances. But we'd want to test that type of idea with the community, and so this station would be an opportunity for that. The fifth station would be about potential incentives for ADU construction, and so we'd present a variety of different options. For example, people have suggested the idea of having permit-ready ADUs, a package of a menu of possible designs that people could choose from. Would that be a good suggestion? So we would have some possible incentives, and we would ask people to sort of maybe place a sticker beside the ones that they like as a way of gauging feedback for the type of strategy we might want to include in the housing element. And then the final station would be about SB 9 standards. So we would set this up as a visual preference survey, show people what different design options, for example, for building design, for the design of roof, parking options, and solicit feedback from community members on those type of options. That input would inform the development of objective standards for SB 9 developments. So that's kind of an overview of how this workshop would work. In parallel, we're planning a townwide online survey, which would have questions that would mirror these topics that would be at each of the stations. To promote the events, we're planning a series of things. We're planning another townwide mailer that would go out in advance of the meeting. It would have a link where people can register to attend the event and a link to take the survey as a way of getting the word out. We're also planning a pop-up event in the week before. I was just thinking that maybe the 4th of July event could be a good opportunity to get out and get the word out, or if not that, a pop-up event at the post office, meeting people where they are in their daily life, raising awareness, getting some quick input. So that is a quick overview of the outreach events that we have planned this summer, and I'm happy to answer any questions or hear any comments you might have.
Are there any questions from council members? Councilmember McClellan.
Just a quick question. Who are you thinking about staffing the pop-up event?
Would be staff from my firm. Yeah.
Are there any other questions from council members? Are there any, would any member of the public like to comment on this item? Thank you so much. We'll look forward to the event next month. Item number 13 is a public hearing about our budget. We will consider adopting resolution number 2252, which adopts the fiscal year budget. This is the upcoming year that ends 2023. That's the parcel tax assessment for next year, amends the town salary schedule, and approving the GAN initiative. Town Manager Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. So tonight is the culmination of your multi-month budget development process for the fiscal year ending 23. I'd like to thank the Town Council and our dedicated staff team, including our consulting accountant, Elizabeth Ford, who is available on the call. She's on Zoom, for the considerable amount of work that you and they have put to this budget development process. So thank you to all. As background, the budget is the town's financial plan for the upcoming year, and it includes revenues and expenses related to the town's operation and to our capital improvement projects. It was developed based on the continuing objectives of providing high quality services to the community in a fiscally responsible manner. And the emphasis continues to be to sustain financial stability as we continue to support the town's 7 goals, which are there, and also in the staff report. The overall budget for all of the town funds is $11.4 million for the fiscal year ending 23, and that is an increase from fiscal year ending 22, which the budget this current year was 10.6 million. Budget is conservative, it's a conservative document, and it provides for a small general fund surplus, which is revenues in excess of expenses, of approximately 84,000, with most of that surplus would be provided to the facilities fund, which is a part of the general fund, for future capital facility expenditures. The budget provides current services to town residents as well as new projects and programs. And those have all been discussed a few times by the town council during the course of this fiscal year. And also during your discussion on March 15th, during your strategic planning session and at your April 28th budget workshop. So you've spent time throughout the year and at those workshops discussing the proposed capital improvement plan, 5-year financial forecast, and then if you received your draft fiscal year ending 23 budget document on April 28th. So in your binder that was given to you for this evening, it includes the budget, the actual budget document. There is a budget message memo from me, and it's located behind tab A. And that provides a summary of the overall budget. What you might find of particular interest is the attachment 1, the staff report for tonight. For that agenda item, it lists as a list of all the changes to this budget document that was made between when you saw it on April 28th and now. So we've received, we belong to a handful of JPAs, and we've been getting, those numbers have been firmed up. We also had the county assessor provided us with more confirmed property tax revenue estimates, and some other changes have been made. Since the town council has spent a considerable amount of time on the budget over these past few months, I was planning to keep my comments brief. And if there are no questions from the council, specific actions requested of you this evening are to receive this brief presentation, to adopt Resolution 2252, which approves the fiscal year 23 budget. It sets the public safety parcel tax rate and also amends the town's salary schedule. And then finally, you are asked to consider adopting Resolution 2253, which sets the town's appropriation limit for fiscal year ending 23. But I'd be happy to take any questions that you might have, or could also hear from the public.
Thank you very much. And thank you for all the work that went into this, your first budget. We appreciate it. Are there any questions for Town Manager Johnson from council members? Councilmember McMillan.
I noticed that the Ross Valley Fire budget, the labor agreement still being negotiated. When do you expect to have certainty about what that amount will be?
The Ross Valley Fire Board we anticipate Chief Weber will be bringing forward a new memorandum of understanding for two of their bargaining groups, the firefighters and battalion chiefs, their next meeting in July. So we should have that in the beginning of July, more certainty. But we expect, it's anticipated that we'll be able to fit it within this budget document. I did put a little bit of breathing room in there for the town council.
So then procedurally, what happens once that's known? Do we have to look at the budget again, or how does that work?
No, the budget is a living document. And so first of all, I'm pretty confident the number that we put in here for fire services will cover what we have to pay to the Ross Valley, our share of the fire department's costs. If for some reason it didn't, then we would adjust the budget as we do. We would come back, maybe do a budget adjustment if it was necessary, but we could also might be able to fit it in. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Would any members of the public like to comment on this item? Linda, are there any members of the public online with raised hands?
No, Mayor.
Then let's bring it to the council level. Is there any further discussion discussion about the budget? And if not, would someone make a motion to approve resolution number 2252?
I move approval of resolution number 2252, adopting the fiscal year 2023 budget, setting the partial tax assessment, and amending the town's salary schedule.
Second?
Okay, how do you vote? Councilmember Breckus? Aye. And Councilmember Kircher?
Aye.
Councilmember Cool?
Aye.
And Councilmember McMillan? And Mayor Robbins?
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
Is there a motion to approve resolution 2253?
I move approval of resolution 2253, making findings and determinations in compliance with section 13B of the GAN initiative and setting the appropriation limit for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2023.
Second?
All right, let's take the vote. How do you vote? Councilmember Breckus? Aye. Councilmember Kircher?
Aye.
Councilmember Cool?
Aye.
Councilmember McMillan? And Mayor Robbins?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. We're on to number 14, Town Council consideration of introduction of ordinance number 715, an ordinance of the Town of Ross adopting a military equipment use policy per Assembly Bill 481. Police Chief Potter.
Good evening, Mayor. Yeah. Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm Rafael Potter, your police chief. And tonight I'm bringing before you consideration of introduction for an ordinance regarding military equipment use policy as set forth by Assembly Bill 481. In January 1 of 2022, AB 481 was enacted in the state of California. It governs military equipment use by law enforcement in the state. The law requires each law enforcement agency governing body adopt this ordinance in a public forum. Assembly Bill 481 was authored to address the funding, acquisition, and use of military equipment by law enforcement. The law requires that the town's governing body adopt a military equipment policy as specified by ordinance. A draft of that policy has been posted online at the town's website under the police department since April 30th of 2022. There are 14 categories of qualifying equipment. The law itself and that qualifying equipment are all posted on the Town of Ross website at www.townofross.org under the Public Safety Police section. I'd like to take a moment to thank the town attorney and his staff who worked extensively with me on this since late last year. I can report to you tonight that the Town of Ross does not have any qualifying military equipment as defined by AB 481. Moving forward, the police department will provide an annual report of military equipment use, status, any acquisition of any of that stuff to the town council, and that's done to ensure compliance. That report will identify, as I said, the use, the cost, and other parameters listed within the law. There may be a time when Ross may require the assistance one day of an outside agency here in Marin that does have military equipment. Our policy dictates when and how that is to occur. The police department is providing the following materials to the public by mail or by online: the draft of the policy and the law and definitions of what qualifies as military equipment. Police Department General Order 706 in its draft form is attached to the staff report and, as I mentioned, has been posted. AB 481 requires a manner to file complaints related to the use of military equipment. The police department has always had means for the public to submit questions and complaints both online, by phone, or in person, or mail. Any citizen wishing to submit a question or complaint regards to the department's use of military equipment or the draft military policy may do so online, in mail, or in person. In conclusion, you're being asked to introduce an ordinance regulating the use of military equipment for the Town of Ross Police Department, and I thank you.
Thank you. Are we listening to this and considering it, or are we voting on this tonight?
This is an introduction of ordinance, so
Okay.
you're being asked to vote to introduce ordinance. And
Okay.
if you do decide to introduce the ordinance, then it would be brought back to you at your next meeting for a council consideration and vote for a final passage, and then it would go into effect 30 days after.
Thank you. Are there any questions from council members for Chief Potta? Thank you very much for explaining what this is. Are there any comments from members of the public about this item? Online?
No, Mayor.
Then we'll bring it back to the council level. Is there any further discussion? Or is there a motion to consider the introduction of this ordinance?
Second.
Okay, let's take the vote. How do you vote, Councilmember Breckus? Aye. Councilmember Kircher?
Aye.
Councilmember Cool?
Aye.
Councilmember McMillan? And Mayor Robbins?
Aye.
And the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Item 15 is the staff presentation on the condition of various PG&E utility poles on Sir Francis Drake Boulevard, and a recommendation to authorize the mayor to send a letter to PG&E requesting a safety evaluation of the poles in conformance with CPUC guidelines. Rich Simonich, Public Works Director.
Requested to make an inquiry to PG&E about the status of these poles in late 2021, because they are leaning towards the roadway, and we did identify this corridor as being highway protection. I'll highlight that in a moment for the station. Concern is that, as evidenced by the lean, that the poles have shifted and rotated over time, and that during earthquake, particularly in a highway protection zone, you can see potential for failure for these poles to fall into the defense straight, which is, of course, identified as a major evacuation route in all of our emergency planning documents. So when I went out in the field to visit, I did identify the poles, and I notified the government affairs liaison that these poles are concerns of town, and to staff, notified me that the poles were inspected in 2019 and said they were in good shape. And I believe that was a visual inspection of the poles. We followed up again with another PG&E liaison just a few weeks ago, and they sent a crew out to take a look, and they did a visual inspection of these poles and identified them by address and phone number. They said they passed the inspection as well. It was a visual inspection. So, received presentation. So, you see up here, this is the liquefaction potential in Ross Valley. So, Sir Francis Drake is right up here. Molina South is here, Kentfield down here. So, this is basically Sir Francis Drake through us. And these three green triangles or diamond shapes are the location roughly of three poles in question at 3, 15, and 19 Sir Francis Drake. So, you notice this area in orange is noted in the U.S. Geological Survey as the high liquefaction potential. Turn my mic on.
Speak into the, you have a report that people are having trouble hearing you.
Okay. So you can see again from this diagram that the Ross Valley is in a high liquefaction potential, and these three poles are located within that high liquefaction zone. So this is a view of Sir Francis Drake Boulevard facing north from Kentfield towards Ross Town Hall. And you can see these poles are lining up fairly well. But this pole you can see is actually starts leaning into the street You can't see it behind this tree, but the other two successive poles are also leaning in towards toward the street. This is facing south from Lagunitas Road here, just across the street from where we are now, facing back down towards Kentfield. And you can see these poles. This one here is quite an adverse lean. You can kind of see at the base of the pole that it is the potential for rotation, since this is at an angle to the flat ground. Or it may actually be still just bending and you just can't see below ground. And then the next pole down here, you can't really tell with all the tree coverage, but these three poles, this one, and the one we saw in the first slide, are the poles in question. This is from the bus stop just past Lagunitas Road and Sir Francis Drake Boulevard, standing there looking across to Magic. So this is not this is actually has communication lines on it. It's not a power pole, but it does show that there is a potential that this pole is actually has been shifted underground as a result of possible seismic activity related to the liquefaction of the ground. So this is actually demonstrates the concern that the council member originally brought up to me, and that that staff has indeed agreed that this could be a problem that and it does need to be addressed by PG&E staff. So according to the CPUC General Order 165, in general, PG&E must perform visual inspections to identify safety and reliability issues and potential hazards annually in urban areas such as Ross. Intrusive inspections, which require the actual exposure of a buried portion of the pole, and that's only required to be 20 inches down. These are required every 10 years. And an intrusive inspection is defined as one involving movement of the soil, where they excavate 20 inches around the pole, take samples for analysis, and they use diagnostic tools and visual inspection. According to PG&E, this inspection concentrates mainly on the integrity of the wood itself. From what I could tell, there's no actual consideration of a seismic event and rotation underground due to liquefaction of the soil. It's not known when the last time an intrusive inspection was made on the poles in question, or whether that inspection included a geotechnical evaluation for a seismic event. So PG&E is actively inspecting poles in the town of Ross, as evidenced by the extensive number of encroachment permits issued to PG&E for this purpose over the last few years. In fact, I processed 3 of those encroachment permits just within the last week. The repairs include pole reinforcement at the ground level, the complete pole replacement, transformer replacements, and the guy wire repair. And the guy wires, of course, are those wires that hold the pole in place from various angles around the pole. So staff recommends that Town Council authorize the mayor to send a letter to PG&E requesting a safety evaluation of the utility poles in conformance with CPUC guidelines, with specific consideration to liquefaction potential during a seismic event. And that draft letter is included in the agenda packet. So what we're basically asking tonight is a review of the draft letter, any comments, revisions to that letter, and which staff can make and prepare, and send a copy to the mayor for signature if that is so approved by the council. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Are there questions from council members for Public Works Director Rich Simonich? Councilmember Cool.
Rich, going back one slide to that protocol by PG&E, are those the activities which they have recently performed on those poles, or they're supposed to perform, or what are they?
So the government liaison for PG&E said that the poles weren't inspected. The full inspection in 2019. It was fairly recent actual inspection. And then they sent a electrical inspection crew out just a few weeks ago to re-examine the poles visually. And both results came back that the poles are safe and pass the inspection protocol.
Thank you.
Councilmember McMillan.
So that says that they don't know the last time when an intrusive inspection was made on the poles. They don't keep records on when they do that?
They may have records of them that staff didn't inquire as to when the last time an intrusive inspection was done on those. And we're anticipating that they will respond to that effect once they receive this letter. We'll get information like that. But they were unable to provide that during the inquiry.
Are there other questions? Councilmember Kurtzer.
I mean, it seems we really don't have a lot of information on what is going on here from PG&E. Why are these poles leaning? What caused them to lean in the first place? I'm sure they were straight up and down when they were installed. So, but what is the process? Are they interested in finding out what that process is? Or if they already know, could they include us in the conversation? Is this a process that will continue? When it continue, how much do these poles have to lean before they will acknowledge that it's a problem? I mean, I'm sorry, this is just not acceptable. And I'm not, of course, not criticizing and town staff or anything else, but it's just frustrating to have this kind of opaque response from the PUC. So I'm wondering if we couldn't include something further in the letter, a request, a polite request for some additional information, which is can PUC enlighten us as to why they are leaning and what potential causes are, and at what point PG&E would acknowledge that this is something that we should be, or they should be rather, concerned about. If it's an ongoing process and they're leaning at a 45-degree angle, does that qualify? Do they have to be horizontal first and one of the wires catches one of our fire engines? I mean, if I sound frustrated, I really am. Also, I would suggest that we copy our state representatives on this letter. And I say that because I once worked for a state senator. And guess where all the letters went? To me. And guess what I did with it? Per the senator's instructions, I called people in the agencies and forwarded the letters and said, please respond. And they did. Now, things may have changed, but that got their attention. So I wonder, should we also copy Mike McGuire? And of course, we're going to have a change in our assembly representative, so that's to be determined. But I would favor adding some more specificity to this letter and looping our legislators in. And if the PUC is going to help us and PG&E is not going to be responsive, then take it to the next level. I really, in my experience, this does get attention, but sometimes it takes a bit of work.
Town Manager Johnson, did you have a comment?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councilmember Kircher, for your comments. I wanted to let you know that we've already gotten more attention to this matter. The agenda packet for this meeting was published, I think, at 1:15, somewhere around there last Friday, and within a half an hour, I had a call from Mr. Van Gorder, who's the liaison with PG&E for the North Bay area, and he had already, he received he already read the letter because we attached it, and he did say that he's taking it seriously, and he will be working with his team there to prepare a response. So we can amend the draft letter that's in your packet to include items that Councilmember Kircher just put in there. We can CC our assembly members as well, and then bring it forward and send it to the mayor to sign, if that's what the consensus of the council is to do. Okay.
I would like to know also when the last time was that made the intrusive inspection on the 3 pools that are in question. I bet I won't say anything more.
What we don't know is what's an acceptable amount of leaning. I mean, we don't really know what's safe and what's not safe. I mean, we see them leaning and we suspect they are unsafe, but I mean, we don't really know what their standards are and how they determine that. I mean, that might be another question to ask them is, how do they determine if the leaning pole is safe? Rich,
So the other CPUC order, which describes the design process, they do state that the poles are designed to lean up to 10 degrees from vertical. These are, from what I can see, if I'm looking at the right angle, it is a less than 10 degree lean at this point. But like Councilmember Kircher says, well, at what point will they actually intervene and do some sort of deep dive into the geotechnical stability of the soil? So, and also a clarification, are we still addressing this letter first to PG&E and then we're CCing the CPUC and Senator McGuire, or do we want to send it directly to the CPUC?
why not work with the local agency, and then if we don't get satisfaction, send it on? I might suggest that. What do you think, Councilmember Cool?
Well, I'd like to suggest that in addition to Senator Mike McGuire, we send it to, who's our assemblyman, until Mark Levine, because he's in office here until November.
Yes, and that might be sufficient time. Could I, excuse me, Mayor, may I follow up on?
Yes.
What?
Go right ahead.
Yes. They're standard that the poles are designed to tolerate up to you said a 10-degree lean. Is that as to the pole itself, the strength of the pole, or does it take into account because the problem is not the integrity of the pole, it's the footing, obviously, and whatever's going on underground.
It's my understanding that the 10 degree does not take into account a rotation. It takes into account a bend from the base. So again, it's not doesn't seem to be taking into consideration the rotation and the failure of the subsurface structure.
So where are we with this? We will send the letter to PG&E with Councilmember Kircher's additional questions.
Yeah, staff will work to amend the letter, taking into account these comments tonight, and between Krista and myself, we'll get a letter to you, Mayor, for your final review and signature, if that is the direction of staff tonight, or of council tonight.
Any comments, anything other or different? Okay. Open it up. Oh yeah, sorry. Are there any members of the public who would like to talk about, who have a comment about this item?
Can you close the,
Online, Linda?
I'm checking. No, Mayor.
Thank you very much. All right, I think that gives you the information you need. Is that correct, Rich?
Yes, thank
All
you.
right, thank you.
Do you have to take action?
I don't think, do we need to vote to send the letter?
Authorize the mayor to send
I
the
see.
letter.
All right, is there a motion to authorize the mayor to send a letter?
So moved.
Okay, how do you vote, Councilmember Breckus?
Aye.
And Councilmember Kircher?
Aye.
Councilmember Cool?
Aye.
Councilmember McMillan? And Mayor Robbins?
Aye,
The motion passes.
thank you. Item 16 is staff
Excuse me,
presentation on
Mayor.
bicycle and pedestrian safety in town of Ross and Town Council consideration of potential safety improvement action items. Public Works Director Rich Simonich and Police Chief Ralph Potta.
Excuse me, Mayor, I just wanted to follow up for the last item.
Yes?
We'll follow up to the letter sent to PG&E, and we'll certainly follow up with updates to the council on what commitment they make and their response, and we'll have a follow-up for you as
Great.
soon as we can. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mayor and Council. Again, Public Works Director Simonich. Tonight, we're looking at the bicycle and pedestrian safety in the town of Ross and discussion of options and action items. And I've prepared another presentation up on the screen there. So, Town of Ross, planning for safety. Our general plan prepared in 2007 through 2025 established Goal 7, calling for safe, connected, and well-maintained streets. pedestrian and bicycle routes, and the adoption of a bike and ped master plan, which we proceeded to adopt in 2010 and was updated again by council in 2018, creating priority projects for bike and ped safety. By implementing these plans, the town's goal is to encourage walking and bicycling to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, reduce health and mortality rates, and healthcare costs. And I'm sure there's other benefits as well. Successful implementation must consider addressing the potential increases of conflicts with vehicle traffic. Some brief collision statistics, 2018 to current. According to the Ross Police records, 5 bicycle involved and 0 pedestrian involved collisions were reported in Ross between 2018 and 2022. And of these 5 bicycle collisions, no fatalities were reported. And given the relatively small number of collisions in this data, there's no clear pattern in the contributing factors or time of day. Recent approved bike and safety projects that we've vetted through council, the Bolinas Sir Francis Drake improvements back in 2018, upgraded sidewalks, crosswalks, and the signalization, including pedestrian signalization infrastructure back it was completed in 2018. The Laurel Grove Safe Pathways has been going on since 2018. Phase 1 installed the sidewalk along Laurel Grove and the Magic, and then we are continuing with phase 2 with the pedestrian pathway up to Canyon. And then phase 3 will hopefully take it from Canyon all the way to Macon Grade. This is going to be a dedicated pedestrian pathway for residents living east of Sir Francis Drake Boulevard to safely get to and from Ross School and downtown. We did the Bike Route 20 pathway delineation, that beautiful high visibility pathway through the post office parking lot in 2021. And personally, I'm amazed that there are a vast increase in cyclists, pedestrians, and families pushing their baby strollers along this green pathway. So I believe it does provide both a feeling of safety for pedestrians, and it also for motorists identifies the zone where they need to stay out of with their vehicles. So I believe the implementation of that item has been successful so far. And the future ped pathway on Fernhill was vetted through our early discussions this year for the budget. It would encourage safe walking and biking to and from Branson School, scheduled for 2023. Other bike and ped safety actions that we have implemented, we do a share cost, 50% share cost of the new crossing guard at Sir Francis Drake and Bolinas intersection. We created the Safe Routes to School Task Force, and I believe our first task force meeting is coming up in September, and we're deciding on a date for that. Ross Police deployment during Ross School drop-off, that has been implemented for a number of years. It's always good to see that the police folks out there in the morning and then in the afternoon. And then the staff and council commitment to effective traffic enforcement, education, public outreach, and consideration of new public improvement projects to enhance bike and ped safety in the town of Ross. So that's what we are going to look at next. So locations of concern and suggested improvements identified by staff, and this is by no means a definitive list. We're open to discussion tonight on other locations. We have Sir Francis Drake Boulevard, Glenwood Avenue, Lagunitas, Dibley Road, the access road to Natalie Coffin Green Park, Shady Lane, and then Poplar Avenue and Redwood Drive has some sidewalk gap closures we want to look at. So first, Sir Francis Drake Boulevard. This is kind of a stylized diagram of what we're proposing. So here, let me get my trusty wand here. So proposing a new 30 mile per hour speed limit sign. This is just after the crosswalk at Bolinas Avenue, heading down Sir Francis Drake towards the bridge off here in the distance. So this would, right as the vehicles enter the town of Ross, they will see a new speed limit sign for 30, plus we have the regulatory pavement marking of the 30s in the drive lanes. Also proposing an additional S turn at the approach of the bridge. We have a current one right here. It's kind of an old sign. We did recently clear away the vegetation so that can be seen better. It was visible, but now it is a lot more visible. And we would keep that one, but add an additional S-turn sign up here towards the bridge. And I will show that in a future slide, which is this slide. So this is what we're proposing up by the bridge and this S-turn. This is the pedestrian pathway here. This is the approach to the bridge. This is the guardrail on the north side of the bridge, and then off in the distance you see the guardrail on the south side of the bridge. That's the guardrail that was damaged several weeks ago during the accident. So what we're proposing here is, and this is the sign, the radar sign that tells you if you're going over the speed limit, placing this S-turn sign right here just before the curve. And then we want to put these reflective markers along the barricade here, facing into traffic, so that during the evening and nighttime when the vehicles shine, they'll know that there's a barricade here. And we are also going to put them at the barricade at the far end facing into traffic. So this whole line here will be lit up with these reflective markers. So on to Glenwood Avenue. So there's two locations on Glenwood Avenue. I'm sure you're familiar if you've ever walked or driven it. It is an alternate route to Natalie Coffin Green Park by several neighborhoods. I used to go this way as a kid. I lived in Winship Park, and we'd actually walk down Bolinas and up Glenwood Avenue to get to Natalie Coffin Green Park. So you have these blind curves. There's no places for pedestrians to walk. And so we're proposing some share the road signs. These are regulatory signs from the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices. We could simplify it with just a share the road sign. This is kind of what we're proposing. I think I've identified two locations. So we'd have one sign at two locations, but going in both directions. So a total of 4 new signs would be placed on Glenwood Avenue to just to let motorists know that there are pedestrians using this road and bicyclists. And I'm amazed that we've gone so far without any collisions in this area that I know of. So that's a recommendation by staff. Same condition here on Dibley Road, and this is the road again. This picture is taken from the Natalie Coffin Green parking lot facing back down Dibley Road towards Lagunitas Road. And when I was there taking this picture, you have these bicyclists coming out this way and a car coming in this way, which highlights the potential here for conflict. And again, we'd place maybe 1 or 2 of these, either share the road, showing all the elements involved here. Probably want to put a pedestrian in there too, or as an alternate, we put just the share the road sign. And Shady Lane, which is a Route 20 bicycle route, a Marin County bicycle route designated, and many bicyclists, as you know and use this to get to between Ross and San Anselmo and beyond. So we propose putting these sharrows in Shady Lane. We'd move them over closer to the edge of the road. Oh, let me go back there. Closer to the edge of the road on either side to keep the bicyclists from going into the middle of the road. They're supposed to follow this arrow. So where we put those would kind of direct the bicyclist to stay more towards the shoulder of the road. And then finally, this is a safety concern, not so much with vehicles like the rest of them are, but this is an area where we have sidewalk, and then it goes to some pea gravel here. This is all redwood, and Poplar is similar. You have a sidewalk, goes to pea gravel, so some kid on a bicycle, he's driving along. Once you get to this, your velocity changes quickly, and you could lose control of your bicycle. This particular location on Redwood this is actually like a 4 or 5 inch drop of the sidewalk ends, and then it continues on in gravel, and then the sidewalk picks up again. So we want to do these gap closure, or look at these gap closures here. I've been bringing this up for a number of years in our bike and ped planning studies. There's two options we could take here. The enforcement option is we require the homeowner to do the sidewalk work themselves. And this is per the Ross Municipal Code, and the Streets and Highways Code also requires property frontage owners to be responsible for maintaining the sidewalk for both accessibility and just having safe walking for pedestrians. The other option is we could subsidize, and the town would take this under some sort of improvement program where we would fund or partially fund from the general fund or Safe Routes grants. The problem with that, of course, is once we start taking this under a town program, then the assumption is that the town is taking ownership of these sidewalks, and we are therefore may be expected to continue that maintenance through in perpetuity. So both of these options do come with problems, both the legal issues with subsidizing and then the enforcement. Once, if I enforce one property owner, we have to go through the entire town and enforce that at every single location. We can't single it out. Alternatively, we could develop a program year by year where we target property owners 1 year and then more property owners the next year, something like that. But something really needs to be done to do this gap closure, and a staff will work on some solutions to that effect. So finally, staff recommends the town council provide staff with direction tonight for implementing safety measures at featured locations, and or recommend alternative measures and locations. So, I mean, what I'm proposing, again, this is sort of, staff, what does council want, and how many of you want what? So what I'm proposing is, we go back to this list and go through the list, and maybe a raise of hands, if that's okay. I don't think it needs to be a formal vote, but
maybe what we can do, we'll first see if there are questions for you, public comment, and then yes, that's a good idea to go, street by street to see what council members think.
perfect.
So first,
Thank you, Mayor.
are there any questions for Rich from council members? Councilmember Kircher.
The sign that you showed us, the share the road sign, the particular image, I think it was a triangular sign. Yes, there it is. So it has an image of a cyclist and an image of a car. Are there signs available that would also have an image of a person walking? Because people do walk along, and I think that's unexpected.
Yes, great.
I think everything's unexpected, but that is a dangerous street.
It is. That's a great question. So we do a contract with the Marin County Sign Shop that creates regulatory signs, and basically between Anthony and I, we can come up with a design, with any sort of design. It doesn't have to be these MUTCD signs. The sizes and coloring, the background do need to be certain colorings, but we can come up with whatever we want, and we can add the pedestrian motif to this sign, even or this sign, some sort of hybrid of this sign. So yeah, there's a number of different options we can do with these signs. So take that into account, and we can discuss that with staff. I don't know if we would need to take back the actual design to council, but based on our discussion tonight, we would hopefully get the direction to come up with a sign that satisfies council's direction.
And then I have a second question or comment with regard to signs or electronic signs that show your speed. You didn't mention replacing any of those, and perhaps we'll just stay with what we have. If you were to acquire any additional signs, and I can't remember where I saw this, but I saw a more modern version of this, which showed you your speed, but gave you some advice, like reduce your speed to, 5 miles an hour less or something like that. And it got my attention, and I thought, okay. I mean, so I was going 5 miles an hour, but over the limit. But there may be some newer signs that are available that really do get your attention. Just a suggestion. If if you weren't thinking of replacing anything, well, I'm not suggesting that, it's worth the cost of replacing a sign that's already working.
Right, you can have those signs flashing red. You can really program them to say anything we want. The one we have now at the bridge, Sir Francis Drake Bridge eastbound, is pretty much the softest, most innocuous message that you could have, and we can definitely toughen that up a little bit if that is the council's pleasure.
Are there other questions? Councilmember McMillan.
So I just want to make sure that the scope of this is pedestrian and bike, right? We're not
Yes.
talking about cars.
We're talking about pedestrian and bike safety with respect to vehicular traffic, except for the sidewalk closures or gap closures on Poplar and Redwood. So yes, it's vehicular conflict.
Just driving over here, trying to get out of Winship, there were cars going 45 that nearly, hit me. It's still that area, and cars speeding, particularly on Sir Francis Drake, is a huge issue, not only for pedestrians and bicyclists, but also for people in their cars. So I think that should be a priority. I would love to see a sign go westbound on Sir Francis Drake showing your speed. And also the gap closures that you're mentioning, I thought bicyclists were not supposed to ride on sidewalks. Just people are supposed to walk on sidewalks.
That's correct for the most part. So that is really a pedestrian issue. Thanks.
Councilmember Breckus.
Well, I'm not a huge fan of signs. I think the more they get posted, the more people ignore them. I think the S-turn is a huge one that I think doesn't do anything for people. So I don't like that. I like the wording.
Speak in your microphone, please.
Sure. I like the wording in the staff report for the sign on Glenwood Avenue as opposed to those, because that's really what we're trying to address is the pedestrians on the road. There was talk on Glenwood, I think where the picture was taken, of a huge bush that grows out into the road. And I think maybe there was an effort to get the owner to trim it back. I don't know. It's been a while since I've been on that, so I don't want to say that needs to be done, but that's where that blind curve is really a bit of a problem. But yeah, I mean, I hate to say it, but I think that Sir Francis Drake has a problem of people the car accidents that I've seen have been either people who've been drinking or they've been people who have fallen asleep at the wheel. So those are the accidents there, and it's very hard to drive and navigate a car when you're drunk and asleep. So I'm not sure. I think it's been very effective to have the police car parked there at times. I think that really slows it down. I don't even think people slow down as much for these sign postings of speed because there's no enforcement. I mean, I'm pretty aware of my speed when I'm going over the speed limit from my speedometer. That doesn't add anything, and now they're everywhere. So I think when they were new, it kind of got my attention. I feel less, less enamored with them now. But Dibley Road, that's news. I didn't even know that was what we called it. Dibley Road. But again, that could be another great place for the pedestrians on roadways. I mean, the Sharrows, I didn't know that was the term, but again, I'm just surprised that actually has a difference, makes any kind of difference. I mean, I don't know if you want to go one by one on this subsidizing or grants.
Why don't we finish the questions and public comment, and then we'll go back,
Okay.
Suggestion by suggestion. Are there other questions? Councilmember Cool.
Is Dibley Road a public road?
It's a public right-of-way, but it's it's public because anybody can use it as long as the gate's open. It's maintained by the by MMWD, I believe.
Okay, so do we have authority to put signs on Dibley Road?
Yes.
And secondly, a comment about Dibley Road, I think we should keep in mind that we have that lawsuit by the bicyclist. And maybe we ought to run it by the lawyers who are handling that lawsuit before we start putting up signs in the area where that accident happened.
Right. And then to clarify, so it is actually the property where that roadway lies on is owned by MMWD, but we have an easement over it. There's a public easement over it. So just to clarify, so we would have to clear any signage as well with MMWD. Good question, Beach. Thanks.
I have a couple of questions. You'd said in the past 4 years there were 6 bike accidents, but no pedestrian accidents, right?
5,
Reported, yes.
Pardon me?
5.
Five.
There were 5 accidents,
But bicycle
bicycle
and
accidents.
no pedestrian.
So 1 a year, roughly.
Okay, but if we're not required to do, I mean, we don't want accidents, but we're not required to do any of these signs if we don't want to. Is that correct?
That's correct. We're not currently compelled to do it by any
Okay.
action.
And then one of my comments or questions, can those shrubs be cut back on Glenwood? Because that blind curve, there is a, I mean, it would be interesting to see where is the property line and what's the right of way, and can that hedge be cut in some? Because if that could be cut in, that would solve much of the problem. Do you know
Yes.
if
Yes.
there's room there to trim?
There is, that hedge is in the public right of way. We've talked to the homeowner several times over the past several years. He did cut it way back about 2 years ago, back to the twigs, basically, but it is growing back again. He seems amenable. He understands exactly what the issue is, but he begs that we don't totally remove it, which we have every right to because it is in our maintained right of way. So we'll work with him and take a look at that again and have him cut it back if needed. I know exactly which hedge you're
I
talking
mean, because
about.
that would be my first step for that dangerous corner is fix the problem, not put up a sign to tell people it's dangerous, just make it not dangerous. One other question, for Sir Francis Drake, I agree with Councilmember Breckus. I don't think the signs do much good, but is there a way to lobby the state to put back speed cameras? Because other states have speed cameras, and if people knew that their speed was being monitored and they would get a ticket, well, then that's 24/7 enforcement. What do you think the prospects are for the state of California to bring back speed cameras? That would fix Sir Francis Drake for us.
Chief Potter can respond.
So as far as I know, we've not had speed cameras in this state. We've had stoplight cameras
I
that
see.
I was a part of back in San Rafael. It brings with it some unique issues, but as far as I know of in California, I don't know of any speed cameras. There are other regulatory things that happen in the state with fast track monitoring that they do measure speed, but I don't see that as being a solution for Sir Francis Drake.
Too bad. I know Arizona has them, I
Yeah.
mean, people get tickets. And, okay. Councilmember Kircher.
A follow-up question on the issue of signs and comments by council members that perhaps people are used to these signs and they don't really do any good. And I'm wondering, is there any literature on this or any science or studies that attempt to measure the effect of signs and the sort of process of desensitization, you might call it, where people repeatedly go on the same route and after a while they don't even see the signs? I have to say I do, and I look for signs to remind me of hazards. It's just automatic to do that. And whether I've been that way or not, I mean, I'm looking for them. Is that just an individual difference or what?
I'm going to defer that one to Chief if you've got a
I don't know
comment.
if, Councilman Kircher, I don't know anything about signage. I do know there has been a little bit of study on ghost cars where you park a car in a neighborhood at a certain location and, after the second or third time around during the week, people know that there's nobody in it and there's no consequence. So they work pretty well for a couple days, and then they drop way off pretty quickly. And yeah.
Then, are there any other questions? Councilmember McMillan?
Could we try to put up the signs and see what happens? And then if it doesn't change anyone's behavior, we could take them down.
Well, why don't we see if there's public comment, and then we'll go street by street.
It's just a general question. We could. do
Oh,
that,
I see,
right?
I see. It's for process.
Yes, staff can do that
Great,
at any
thank
time.
you.
Got it. I see what you.
But are you talking about, I mean, since we have one accident per year, so what are you saying? That we eliminate all the accidents? That's the benchmark for?
No, I think there's a lot more close calls, and if a sign is going to help someone drive more carefully.
How are you going to avoid what was a close call versus a car accident, since we don't have any data on the close calls?
It would make people feel a little more safe if there's more warning. And I don't see why we wouldn't take steps to try to enhance public safety if we have these steps. That's more of a deliberative comment, so never mind.
I'm sorry, I was just trying to figure out what the benchmark was going to be.
Let's, are there any other questions for town staff? Then let's open it up to members of the public. Are there any members of the public who have comments on it? Please introduce yourself and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Yes, hi, my name is Robert Balmaceda, and I live at 61 Sir Francis Drake. So I first want to thank the town staff for putting together this report, and I appreciate addressing many concerns I have raised. Councilwoman Brecas, I'd invite you to walk with me. I walk this neighborhood 4 or 5 times a week. And if the standard is reducing it to 0, I think that's a great standard. I can't tell you how many times I've almost been hit. And I'm in my mid-50s, and I'm pretty fit. I'd really encourage you to walk with me.
I live on Sir Francis
Oh, I know
Drake,
exactly
and
where
I
you live.
walk
You live
all
across the
over
street.
Ross, so
So-
I run most days.
So my
just so you
point-
You
know.
know
a
what,
couple
why don't we
points, this
just,
is my
wait,
time.
let's just keep this as 3 minutes from
So
the
point number
speaker.
1 is on Dibble Road. There's only one sign that says, or 2 signs, one at the beginning that says 5 miles an hour on each side. No one goes 5 miles an hour on that road. Second, share the road I think would have substantial impact. And if the point of putting up signs or not, man, we have so many no parking signs in this town. There are more no parking signs in this town than there are anything else in this town. Sir Francis Drake, those suggestions would be very helpful, but there's also lack of barrier between the roadway and that sidewalk in several instances around 73, 71, 69. I don't see the harm in putting up those things or even those traffic zones. We put up the dots, and I can't tell you how many of the dots have been knocked off by cars. That's the only way they get knocked off, right? So as someone who's a resident in this town who walks, and there's plenty of people that I see walking around this town, older people, kids on bikes, adding things to address safety, I don't see the harm. Speed is entirely too much of an issue on Dibble Road. People go way over 5 miles an hour. On Glenwood, I think those things at the S-turn would help substantially. I can't tell you how many times I've almost been hit on that corner, especially once when I was on the phone with Mayor Robbins. Third, Sir Francis Drake needs, those things are great helps. Those things I think would be fantastic. I don't mind, why wouldn't we put something in people's face to go slow down on that street? People hit that turn at 50. People start that off the line here at Molinas and hit that turn at 40. And that car accident is right across the street from your place. I don't see the harm in doing some of these activities. If the point is we got to wait till we get some pedestrian injuries before we do something, wow, it's a terrible standard. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who'd like to comment? Linda, is there anyone online?
Rich, can you,
Sorry.
no, there are no hands raised, Mayor.
Okay, then let's bring it back to the council level, and let's start with, can you bring up that list of the streets, Rich?
Yes.
So let's start with Sir Francis Drake Boulevard.
Let's see, hold
The
on.
suggestions were adding another sign that's 30 miles an hour, adding reflector lights along the rear, and adding an curve sign.
I just want to point out that sign right there that says 30 miles an hour, I don't think that's where that is. I think it's in front of, do you know what I'm talking about? That is showing it.
Which one?
Go back to the next one. That sign that says 30 miles an hour that exists, I don't,
Yeah,
the
that's
sign in this picture, isn't that further up? It's not in that location. It's further up, if I'm not mistaken. Or
This is looking towards San Anselmo, is that correct?
no, this is looking
This is looking
eastbound towards
towards
Oh, I
Town
see
Hall.
where it is. I see where the bridge is in relation. I'm sorry.
That bridge
I
is
got,
right here.
I see.
Oh, so is that the flashing sign that we're seeing?
This is the existing flashing sign
Okay, got
radar
it.
detector sign.
And so your idea is to put the S sign below the 30.
Yes, and the reflectors all the way on both sides of the bridge, right
I
across
mean,
from your house
has
here.
anyone ever looked at an S sign and thought, oh my God, I'm going to navigate a turn and now I need to do something differently? I get if it's a windy way and you're not familiar with the road. I'm just wondering, is that really?
Yeah, I mean, it's not much of a curve, it's just that people go too fast, so they make a mess of it. Are you proposing on the same pole as the flashing sign?
Yes. Just so we don't, and especially so we don't have to add another pole.
Yeah,
And it's a
yeah.
good location just before the bridge.
I mean, I'm kind of neutral on that. I mean, if it was another pole, I'd say, gee, that's too many signs. If, I think the lights might help at night. I like that idea to have lights on the barrier.
Yes.
That kind of seems like a no-brainer. Are we all in that one or no?
Yeah, were we talking about the reflectors?
Yeah, the reflectors on the barrier.
Yeah, I'm all in for all of it.
Okay, so reflectors on the barrier, that's a yes.
Okay.
The S sign, on the flashing sign, I'm sort of neutral. I don't think it's going to help much. It's not that big a curve. It's really the speed that matters to me, but I could go either way.
Any yeses for the S sign at this
I
point?
think Julie. Yeah. Yeah.
I have a comment.
Yes, go ahead.
I guess it's a general comment that I should have made before. I think when we talk about any of these traffic controlling attempts that we're making, we have to keep in mind that that sets a record that we were concerned about the safety of our road. And if we get into litigation, that's something that can be used against us. I'm not opposed, obviously, to trying to make things safer, but I think we have to be, and I don't mean that for that reason I oppose these particular signs, but I think it's a general thing we have to keep in mind.
Don't we already have a record of the staff recommending that a sign be posted? So there already is a concern about the road? I mean,
I think that what happened was we asked staff to bring forth an item. So then he goes through the public works safety book and here's all the signs I can propose and these are the things that we could do. We obviously can do other random things like speed bumps, stoplights and everything else. I guess I just would say that, if I had, after 10 years on council, I think probably 20, 30 different streets have told me theirs is the most dangerous street, the most. And then what we did is we went off and we looked at speed bumps and things like that. And I've sat through like 3 or 4 different times where we've talked about, because someone brought in and then all of a sudden we're looking at it. So I just want to point out, we can't just every time somebody says their street is the most dangerous, all of a sudden embark on a huge study. And if I thought that would do anything, having a yellow sign that indicates there's a turn, I'd be all for it. I'm just not convinced that does. I'm fine with the reflectors, and if somebody wants to add another 30 sign where there's a gap about it, that could be good.
I
I
thought it
also
was
think
30
it could be
painted
good
on
to
the-
have the chief occasionally have somebody sit in the car. So it's not a ghost car all the time, but not all the time, but you know what I mean? Like every once in a while, blue moons, because then people are a little bit more alert.
Is one of the proposals to put 30 on the road also? Paint 30 miles an hour on the road or no?
Yes, that was
Yes, okay.
at this advanced location, just as you're leaving San Anselmo
Right.
coming into Ross.
Okay,
And does everybody feel okay with that?
yeah.
That
Well, let me
recommendation?
just, Town Manager Johnson.
Excuse me, if I'd like to clarify real quick, especially in response to Mayor Pro Tem Cool's remarks, is that staff, first of all, staff is not saying that there are dangerous conditions in our town. That is, we are absolutely not saying that at all. I don't want you to go away from thinking that. And also, if you read the recommendation in here, it's recommended that the town council receive a presentation on bicycle pedestrian safety in the town of Ross and provide direction to staff regarding the implementation of potential safety improvement action items. This is not, and I know that you, since I've been here, it's very obvious, and I'm grateful that the council has respect for staff's recommendations. What I want to convey here is that these are not staff absolute recommendations. This is in response to a handful of complaints or concerns that we've received from members of the public. And in response to that, some of our council members asked, because you are responsive to people, to your constituents. And so we just thought it was appropriate. I thought it was appropriate to bring this to the council for a general discussion, because it is my understanding that there might be some conflicting opinions on signage. So that's simply what this is. It's a presentation. Our public works director and our police chief put together some ideas. As for enforcement, we have limited budget for police staffing, and so if the council wants to go down that route, that's something that we would need to do more evaluation of, and some put together a budget or something for the council to consider. It's not something that we can really dedicate right now. And I'd be happy to ask the chief to respond to that issue of enforcement and our capacity to have greater enforcement if the council's interested.
Let's keep going down. Let's just clarify. Oh, yes?
Respond to one of the points.
Yes, go ahead.
The point about potential liability, what is the effect of a warning sign? So I've had quite a bit of litigation that involved both warning signs, products liability cases, which is a little different. In a products liability case, if you do something, if you have a problem with something, and then you're in a dilemma, if you then change the product, then it's, aha, you should have changed it before, you should have known. So some people actually don't take remedial action because of that concern about ongoing litigation. But I think this is a little different. It's not we've had a problem, it's just we're warning about a potential problem. And I defend the government in court, the government, and we were sued repeatedly for problems on national lands, national parks, and so forth. And the problem always is that we didn't warn. It was never that we warned. If we warned, the plaintiff lost. If we didn't warn, well, depended on the specific circumstances. So in this specific situation, I don't think there's an exposure for warning about the condition.
Our town attorney is available, is on Zoom,
Yeah.
so if the
Yeah.
council has questions
Sure.
regarding that, that's something he might be able to respond to.
Let's try to move this forward. Reflectors on the, we're all in for the reflectors, correct? We have at least 3 people who are, okay, fine. Then what about paving 30 miles an hour on the road? 3 votes or more for that? Yes, okay. And then we're down to the S sign. And I'm not so convinced we need it. If we're going 30 miles an hour, they're not going to need an S sign, but I'm kind of neutral. I think, Julie, you think it would be a good idea to add it. Bill, you do. Elizabeth or Beach? S sign, yes or no?
No.
No?
I mean, I don't want to litter the town with signs, because what people move here is for rustic charm, and I don't think they want to see green painted bike things or yellow painted 30 markers or whatever. I do want to slow people down in that thing. I don't know.
That's fine, yes or no?
Can't make up my mind. I don't know enough to know whether that's, I think we're wasting our time trying to talk about whether that's something. But I don't think any of us know.
So why don't we pass on that for now? Oh, yes,
The current S sign that's on Sir Francis Drake is in there. We've met regulatory requirements. So this would be an addition above and beyond regulatory requirements for this S sign.
okay. I think we should probably just move on and not do it for now, but yes, Julie.
Going to point out that it would be on an existing sign, and it's not in a rural neighborhood. It's on Sir Francis Drake, which is like really busy thoroughfare. So I think it's different from, littering the town with too many signs.
Okay, I'll be a yes and we'll move on. Okay, so that's it.
Awesome.
On to the next one. What's
We
the
got
next
3
street?
yeses.
Rick, what was the next street we were considering? Let's do Shady Lane. Shady Lane, I personally don't like things on the street. And there'll be cyclists anyway. And the whole point is to help, I think, pedestrians. So I would be a no for this on this particular street. I think it's helpful when there's a street where cars really don't know that bicycles might be there. Everyone knows that there are bicycles in Shady Lane because there are bicycles at every block. Any other comments about these paintings on Shady Lane? Are there any yeses? Okay. Okay, so I think we'll pass on that, Rich.
Okay.
Next street.
Let's go to Glenwood Avenue. So we could use a similar sign like this, or what I originally proposed is the caution pedestrians on roadway, keep it simple, in approximately 4 locations, 2 going either direction at the blind curves.
You know what, I have to say, if we can get that hedge taken down, either reduced in height or moved back, I think that's the approach we should do, rather than put up a bunch of signs around it and let somebody have their hedge. And I'm not 100% sure what's on the inside of that fence because it's so hard to see, but I'd also like to know if that person has room to landscape inside their fence, because that's the only reason we're putting up this sign.
I agree with that.
It's not a blind curve once you take back the right of way.
There shouldn't be, the hedge extends too much. I wouldn't put the signs up, but I would insist on the hedge work. Beach?
My recollection of, we talked about this a lot a number of years ago, and I can't think of the family that have the house there, but their concern was their privacy.
Yes.
Because if we took that hedge away, people could see straight into their living room. I don't know where that brings us, but I just wanted to remind everybody that that's what was going on a few years ago.
Well, and we also made somebody remove a hedge on the corner of Bolinas and Glenwood. I mean, they had to re-landscape completely, and it was the same plant material. So, I mean, I don't know why we're going to make one neighbor take away, a blind corner hedge, and then this neighbor, I mean, I think that they need to either bring it down or they need to, cut it back or whatever, but that's
Because if a hedge is in,
situation we're correcting.
if a hedge is in the right of way and it's a safety issue, I mean, absolutely, it shouldn't be there. I mean, you don't have the right to landscape the right of way, especially if it's a safety issue. That's where I
Public
would
Works
start.
could issue an abatement order and see if he wants to appeal it. If that is that something that council would like Public Works to pursue?
I think that's the first step. Instead of putting signs, hedges block your view, go slowly. I mean, it's just not right. So that would be where I would start.
And if this is the town attorney chime in real quick, if you can hear me. What I don't want the council to do is to order the Public Works Director to issue an abatement order. I think the direction should be to figure out our options for taking down the hedge.
Okay. Okay. It sounds like that's the direction of the council for Glenwood. Is that correct? Is there any, are there 3 votes for signs?
I'm just wondering where the signs would go. I don't have a good concept of where those signs would be put. So I agree with, let's explore hedge issue. If that's the safety issue, I'm sure that's the only safety issue. I think there's other areas on Glenwood in addition to the hedge. My view is I would rather just leave it to the 2 of you to figure out rather than us going through sign by sign. And you guys are the experts, and you should have the authority and the judgment to do what's best for the community.
I don't agree with that. I think that we're going to have signs all over town. I mean, as we've had in my 10 years, I would say in the immediate area, we've had probably 10 signs at it. And there is actually a good article that talks about the community blight and the ruining of our community streets by all these proliferation of signs. And some of them just don't do any good. I mean,
It's like trying to prevent a wildfire and you don't know if it's going to work or not because the wildfire hasn't come. I mean, if we put up signs and people don't get run over, is that because of the sign, or, it's very difficult to prove that.
Councilmember Cool.
I'm very much on board with what Julie said. We are not experts. The 5 of us up here are not experts on signs. And I think we ought to leave it to people like who have some expertise in public safety, how to design roads, and let them decide what we should and shouldn't do. I think it's silly for us to be sitting here arguing about individual signs on individual roads.
Some
We
of
ought to
it-
leave it to our staff people.
I think some of it's sort of town aesthetics versus safety. And we're
Well-
kind of collaborating to figure out where's the sweet spot with the 2, where the 2 spots meet. Julie?
I mean, we don't want the town littered with signs, right? I mean, what Elizabeth is saying is true. We don't want a proliferation of signs. But we trust you to use your judgment and put them where they're necessary and where they're going to hopefully make a difference. You're not just doing a sign exercise.
Right.
But the roads, was there one road the road to Natalie Coffin Green Park, we didn't talk about that yet. The signs that you had suggested had bicycles and cars. I really feel like it's the pedestrians who are at risk. But it already says 5 miles an hour. I would leave it at that. Maybe they're more, and maybe more of those speed bumps. I think those are probably the most effective for that. That's a really pretty area where you don't want a lot of signs there, and it says 5 miles an hour.
Yeah.
I don't know what, Councilmember Cool.
After having said I should leave it to others, I want to point out that speed bumps cause noise. And people who live near speed bumps don't like them.
But there's no one who lives up there.
Yes, there are. There's 2 or 3 houses along.
Once the road starts to the park, there are no houses once the road starts.
Well, then we don't even know where these signs are going.
I think it's not a good idea to let staff spend $2,000, $1,000 here on all these signs, because what's going to happen is they're going to put up signs, people are going to complain, and there's no notice about it, and it was a staff discussion, and then we wasted the cost of the sign. So if anything, there should at least be somewhere where on the town website, we're putting up a 30-day notice or something about what we're going to do about signs.
There was notice, and there's no one here to make any comments. There's been no public except for the guy who
We
lives
haven't
on Sir Francis Drake.
Did we open it up?
Maybe we did open it up. Yes.
Okay.
And Sir Francis Drake.
Well, and here's a problem with giving staff this direction. Then we have people who are going to, whether it be council members or staff or residents, come in and complain. And the next thing you know, staff does it because they're just like, hey, the reason why we're having this meeting is because, as Krista said, they're hearing that there's different opinions on the council as to it. And half the things that were recommended, we're not doing because we don't have an agreement. So I think it's a little bit hard to bond it to staff and then have people be upset at the staff, or have them be the people with all the authority, and they're the ones hearing from, the people that are lobbying for them.
But, I think we're pretty much done with this discussion, and I think we had some helpful suggestions about some possible, some potentially dangerous spots, and we agreed that there could be some changes on Sir Francis Drake, and there could be some hedge work on Glenwood, and not too much on the others. And I think that's a fine place to leave it for now and see where we are, moving forward. Maybe there'll be an interest in doing more, but I think this was very helpful, and we've addressed it, and we've talked about it. And if we need to do more, I think we'll hear from residents or ourselves or staff that more should be done, and then we take more action. So I'm actually okay to just move on, or others.
I'm fine with moving on.
Yes? No, Julie?
Want to make sure that Chief Pata and Rich have a good understanding of what to do.
I think I do. Allow me to just summarize before we close it off. So on Sir Francis Drake, we said yes to the 30-mile-per-hour sign and road striping at the entry from Bolinas. We said yes to the new regulatory S-turn at the radar sign and the reflective markers on top of the guardrail barriers. And then Glenwood Avenue, DPW is just going to open it with a friendly letter to the property owner, reminding him that that hedge needs to be trimmed for clearance, and then we'll go from there. We'll start off slow with that and see how it goes. He's a good guy, and he's amenable to that. And then I think I'd like to put at least one caution pedestrians on roadway on Glenwood Avenue at the other blind curve that's on actually a hillside. It's further on up from the hedge, going each way. And I'd like to put one.
Where is that?
That's just at the very top of the hill of Glenwood. If you're headed towards Phoenix Lake, it's the first top of the hill. Then you go down around a corner, then you come around another corner, and that's the hedge. So there's two actual blind corners. So
Wait, is Glenwood and Lagunitas or Glenwood and Fern Hill?
it's closer to Glenwood and Fern Hill, the top of the hill, headed towards Lagunitas. You pass Fern Hill on the left, you keep going up until you get to the top, then you come down. Right at that location, there's a blind curve, and then further on down, there's the one where you get to the bottom, and that's where the hedge is, and you turn to the right. So we'll work with the property owner on the hedge, but I would like to put, I think it's a good idea to put a caution pedestrians on roadway in that location. And I'll work with the chief. Maybe we'll do it, maybe we'll not. But I understand the direction is to kind of leave it up to us, but don't proliferate the roadways with signage. So I think we'll make some good choices
So I
on
still don't
that.
understand where it is. Where is this?
It's across from
Let's
Siebel property, if I'm understanding correctly.
see.
So the backside of the Siebel property.
Got it.
Yes. It fronts along the unoccupied Siebel property.
I mean,
So
I don't think it. I think it'll be. I don't know that it's necessary, and I think it's kind of ugly to put signs there. It's such a pretty street.
okay,
I mean,
we can.
that's my opinion. I don't know that anyone's ever been hurt there. I mean, not that we need people to be hurt, but people walk. I mean, I don't know.
How about
I would. My opinion only.
okay? We can defer that one. How about one caution pedestrians on roadway at the entry to Natalie Coffin Green Park, right at the gate.
Could it be right? Could it be one of the 5 mile an hour?
Yes,
The same
with
post as the
with
5
one
mile
of the
an hour
existing
sign?
poles.
I mean, I think that's okay. I mean,
Just
there are pedestrians.
yeah, and a lot of out-of-town people who aren't familiar with it.
Yeah, I don't think it needs to highlight cyclists or cars. I mean, but pedestrians, yes, because there are a lot of pedestrians on that street.
Okay, no sharrows on Shady Lane, and I too would like to defer the sidewalk gap closures for another council item.
Okay,
And that I think that concludes this discussion.
thank you. I
welcome.
appreciate your research and your suggestions and listening to all of our different opinions.
Thank you for your patience on that item. your direction, and it is interesting because if we had the comment from a citizen last time about signage on the common, and it's a balance.
Yes.
Staff and the council have to make about, we could have something up there that states what everything is prohibited, and then you have some sign pollution. So it's not an easy thing at staff level, and certainly not at the council level. So thank you for your input and direction.
Now we're at item 17, update regarding Ross Valley Fire Department's draft request for proposals. Is there a Ross Valley Fire Department update?
It looks like they kind of put us as the people giving it.
Oh, yes, Council members Spool and Breckus. What is your update,
I'll
please?
defer to our president. He can go first.
Well, there were, I don't think the proposal, the RFPs are not due yet. It's still the case. We did have a discussion about some potential, we did have a discussion about some potential ways to go, and there were 4 of them, but I think I can only think of 3 of them. Basically, what?
It's in your packet, the fire board's agenda material was,
Okay, well, anyway,
was good. Just so you know, if you're all interested,
there
it's in
are
here.
4 proposals. We haven't decided on any of them. There was Member Breckus proposed eliminating one of them right now, and the board decided not to do that. 3 of the proposals are to hire a fire chief like we used to have. Another was to
Like contract for outside services. I mean, kind of like what we have
Yeah.
now with Chase and Weber.
Yeah, we now have a contract with the county fire department to provide us with certain services, including fire chief services and various other administrative services. Okay, I'm forgetting.
Shared services. Another was shared services. So it was have our own chief, contract for the fire chief like we do with CAL FIRE, and then shared services. And then the other one was
Go to a
merging.
fire district.
No, for special, yeah, right, become
a
special
fire
district.
district, in which case you have a separate board that is separately elected. So those are the 4 proposals that seem to be coming forward. But we don't yet have a contract with someone to help us make the selections.
Right. And then the only other thing that that happened that we wanted to kind of update you on is the fact that we did not know when we made the decision to eliminate our fire station, we did not know that Jason Weber was prepared to not renew the county fire contract for chief, which was frustrating because I think it was a known thing within, from his perspective. And I think the entire board, not just our town, but the entire board really didn't have that information. And it's pretty important because things are going swimmingly right now there. But that's because, number one, there wasn't the savings that Jason thought there was going to be by providing this service. It's actually taking him more time, which is why the position is not desirable from his perspective. And so it certainly is one of the reasons why he's not renewing it. So we can expect that if we did go back out, whoever would look at it would look at what we probably paid and look at what they want to charge and what time commitment they can provide. And so, I mean, it's frustrating because it does make what we're about to do more complicated. And and the one that I thought made no sense to look at was the special district, because that's a 3 to 4 year process, and we need a chief now. We need a chief soon. And so, and then it also potentially further dilutes our voice within. And takes our fiscal control over one of our biggest budget items out of our control. So anyway, that's the update.
Any questions? Any members of the public with a comment? Online?
No,
Okay.
Mayor.
Thank you. Now we're at item number 18, 3 Willow Road, design review, hillside lot permit and variance, and town council consideration of adoption of resolution 2254, town planner Mark.
I'm recused on this item because I
okay.
live within 500 feet of it. So I'm going to take a book and go outside.
Oh, okay. So we'll take it sure, let's get like a 2 or 3 minute break and we'll do this project. Thank you. We will now continue. We are at item 18, 3 Willow Hill Road, design review, hillside lot permit and variance. Town planner Markwick.
Good evening, Mayor Robbins and Town Council. The project before you tonight is located at 3 Willow Hill. The lot is landlocked with a slope of 35%. The project tonight proposes to remove the existing rear decks at the first and second stories and to construct a new elevated pool and deck at the first story. The exterior of the pool and deck area would be clad in a masonry wall ranging in height from 4.5 to 7.5 feet. The existing upper and lower decks do not meet the current side and rear yard setbacks. The project proposes to create a more conforming rear yard setback by 2 inches. The right side yard setback remains the same and the left side yard setback will increase to 34 feet. There are existing upper and lower decks with a large underpinning support system that will be replaced with a more modern appearing pool and deck area. The project was reviewed at the ADR meeting 2 times. At the first meeting, some of the suggestions included increase the distance from the new pool deck projection to the rear property line, reduce the elevation of the new pool and deck area, and minimize the profile and improve the appearance of the pool and deck structure as viewed from off-site locations. The applicant made all of the suggestions and the project was unanimously recommended by the ADR at the May 17th ADR meeting. Tonight, the project requires design review, hillside lot permit, and variance. As proposed, the ADR unanimously recommended approval of the design review. The parcel tonight is considered a hillside lot because it has a slope greater of 30%. There are 2 sets of setback standards for hillside lot homes. One set for homes that are 3,500 square feet or less, and one set of standards for homes that are 3,500 square feet or more. The existing home is 3,527 square feet. The side yard setbacks for a home 3,500 square feet is 25 feet, and for a home greater, the side yard setback is 45 feet. The existing home and garage exceed the 3,500 square feet by only 27, which in staff's opinion is nominal. However, it still requires a variance for the side yard setback. Given the topography of the site, the location of the parcel in the middle of other parcels, the 27 additional square feet, staff is able to support the findings for design review, hillside lot permit, and the variance to encroach into the side and rear yard setbacks. Staff has received public comment from 10, 14, and 16 Madrona, who object to the project based on potential noise, public safety, and privacy impacts. The architect has prepared the image on the right, which shows that Willow Hill is approximately 150 feet away as the crow flies from Madrona Avenue. Comments in support of the project include 4, 7, and 9 Willow Hill. Those sites are highlighted above and surround 3 Willow Hill. These 3 properties make a ring around 3 Willow Hill, which will potentially be the most impacted by this project. Staff recommends that the Town Council approve the resolution before you tonight. And I am available for questions now or for after the project applicant makes their presentation.
Are there questions council members. I have one question. The building coverage is non-conforming and that increases in this proposal. Is that correct? I mean, it looks like it goes from
Yes.
14.3%
Yes,
to 15%.
correct.
And then the rear setback is currently, the deck is currently at 13 feet 3 inches, and that non-conforming also increases to 13 feet 5 inches. Is that correct?
It actually gets a little better. So it goes from being 13.3 inches from the rear property line to 13.5 inches. So it's moving in 2 inches.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so
I
it's a
s-
little counterintuitive.
Got it. Okay, so the rear set, it's still in the setback, but it's not,
It's getting
it's
better.
not, got fine. Okay, got it. Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. Councilmember McMillan.
The property owner who owns the property on the downhill side of Willow, is that property owner objecting to this project?
So are you talking about the one?
Yeah, I
Sort of
wasn't- that-
it's two, I believe, that fronts on the green and the purple?
Yep.
I have not received comments from 2 Willow Hill. Perhaps the architect can,
But the property that's adjacent to where the pool and the new decks would be constructed, is that owned by the Cohens?
that
Is
is
that-
number 4.
Is that by somebody else?
I don't know the owner's name.
I'm asking because it seems like that property would be the most affected by this project.
Mhm.
And if they haven't objected, I think that's material fact.
Maybe the applicant knows when they speak.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions for Rebecca?
Yeah, can you just tell me, maybe I wasn't listening carefully enough. What does the green, purple, and blue represent?
Those are the properties that surround 3 Willow Hill. So I was kind of thinking of it at like 3 Willow was a donut hole, and then you have the properties around it are the donut. And the properties that surround it, the donut portion, all are in support of the project.
Oh, so what
So
Julie's,
the green, purple, and blue are properties that have written comments in support of the project.
so that answers your question, Julie, right?
Yeah,
That-
so the property that's most affected does not have an objection.
Correct,
Reported.
correct.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about a different property.
Then let's move it to the public. The applicant and architect have 15 minutes. They can divide it up any way they wish at the beginning of this public session, all at the beginning, or some at the beginning and some at the end, if after hearing comments from the public. Would the applicant like to go first or wait and hear public comments? So let's do that. So are there any comments from members of the public? And we have received emails, of course, emails and letters that were in the staff report. Linda, do you see any members of the public
Can
in
you
person or
close-
online?
Oh, sorry.
Yes, we have one. We have one. Let me bring her in. Go ahead, Adrian.
Good evening, council. This is Adrienne Liggett. I live below the property at 10 Madrona. I want to thank any council members that have come over to look at the property. I think the issue with this property is I don't see how this is a case for hardship. You know, in this case, this pool is going into with a property that's already it's exceeding its building coverage, exceeding its setback. And the reason that we have setbacks is for privacy, is for sound, and it is for safety. And there's just no case that I think that can be made that this is a hardship lot that requires a variance. And I don't want this pool to get into a situation of like it should be rezoned because of its size. You know, we have setbacks for a reason and we have rules for a reason, and I'd like to see these be respected. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda, are there any other members of the public who have comments?
No, Mayor.
All right, then would the applicant or architect like to comment? Here, speak into the microphone. And you have a total of 15 minutes, but you don't have to take as much as
I'll
you
try
like.
and make it as quick and as succinct as I can. My name is Andrew Fisher. I'm the architect for Scott Fletcher, the owner of 3 Willow Hill. And this is the second project we've worked on with Scott. We renovated his house several years back and kind of deferred work on the rear of the house, the deck, in the rear yard for a later phase of what we're presenting to you now. But essentially, this project started, I think, just due to the logistics of the site, that it's a house on a hillside, and really the only access to the outdoors is by the decks. There's really no viable connection to the natural topography. So the deck that was, I don't know, not original to the house, but was constructed at some point, has always been kind of flagged as an issue, both in terms of its function and then also as an eyesore, I think, to not only the hillside, but I think the beauty of the original 1913 Craftsman house. So we've always sort of looked at that as a problem that needed to be solved, but also kind of establishing some other recreational areas outside for Scott's family, his 2 young kids. And basically the concept was they're not mutually exclusive. So the idea of actually renovating this deck and rebuilding this deck and creating and maybe moving some of those spaces down to the lower garden area. There's a flattened area on the back of the property, but the idea of reducing this kind of looming structure that is off the main living level and taking some of that square footage and putting it down below, which is where our pool is. So I think that maybe one of the best slides that illustrates this, if I could ask to go to I think the elevations, the demolition plan. That actually, if you don't mind that. So this is the main living level. That sort of dark shaded area is the existing deck that we're actually proposing to remove, and that's at the top floor. So that's at the highest elevation of the house. And if we could, if you don't mind going to the next slide. Yeah, that is kind of an elevation, an existing elevation at the back of the house that kind of shows the ad hoc nature of this structure that was built on the back of the house that really does no service to the building, both inside and out. It really is a looming presence, both for the hillside, but also for the...
Oh, sorry. So that was only 3 minutes. Keep going.
My time's up?
No, that was only 3 minutes. You're fine.
Okay. And then the lower deck area, which also kind of has this trestle-like structure, is where we were proposing to put the pool and connect the lower bedroom levels to that area, which would also have decks and the proposed swimming pool, where currently there's that deck structure that projects out, as well as there's an existing hot tub that's there. So if you wouldn't mind going to the maybe A2.1, I think it is. Sorry, I'm sorry, the next one. Yeah, there you go, thank you. So this is the proposal for the upper deck area, which you can see we've kind of pulled that projection off of the upper floor, kind of rectified the deck with the existing building and fitting it into that kind of L-shaped form of the plan. And then in doing so, we were actually going to greatly simplify the structure that supports the deck by putting in steel columns and a steel beam that would hold up that upper deck structure. And if we could go back one slide. There we go. And then this is the result of design or proposal for the pool area and deck that would surround that off of the lower floor. And it's actually a half a story below the lower floor. So we're trying to get it down as far as we can to meet natural grade. And, based on the recommendations and suggestions by the ADR for our 2 meetings, we were able to, I think, hear those comments and make adjustments to the design. The design had squared off edges for the ends of the deck. We rounded back to better conform to the natural topography, eliminated some of the deck. We had a walk around of the pool. We've changed that to a waterfall edge, so there's no longer any structure on the northern edge of the pool. Eliminated screens and safety fencing, because now we actually have lower walls effectively, so we're able to change that structure on the outer to more natural materials. And are proposing these masonry rock walls that also are present on Willow Hill and around the entrance to Willow Hill. So I think our feeling about this proposal initially was that, and I think if you visited the site, it really is a wooded site. It feels very secluded, and there's a lot of natural kind of area around it. So I think that the idea of it being private and having reduce some of these structures to make it better conform to the hillside was seemed like a logical step, and that's kind of where we are with the proposal. And we're kind of doing the best that we can in order to fit within the setbacks and the building coverage. And I think specifically to address, maybe the fundamental issue of why we're asking for variance and the limits of this property, and is a zoning. It's less of a hillside issue, but the property is zoned and the setbacks are set up for a 5-acre site. The 3 Willow Hill property is a ½ an acre. So actually conforming to the mandated setbacks kind of creates a negative space. The rear yard overlaps the front yard setbacks and the side yards as well. So there's actually this, impossibly small area that you would actually be able to build on if you were to adhere to the setbacks. So I think our feeling is, just because of the areas that surround it, there are the property below it, or which surrounds this, is an easement for the road that gets up. I don't think it'll ever be built on. So I think that we effectively feel like that's the rear yard, essentially, and would use that area to kind of for the impact to any of the neighbors. So I think I'll stop there and maybe leave some of my time for answering some questions at the end.
Councilmember McMillan.
Yeah, could you address the privacy, noise, and safety issues that have been raised?
The privacy issues, again, I think that we're over 150 feet away from, I think, the folks that are having some of the privacy concerns. Also, elevationally, we're talking about maybe Madrona is 40 plus elevational feet below this property. There's a heavily wooded hillside that's below it. We heard some of those concerns initially. I think in the AR, we wasn't suggested, but I inferred that we could do something else to mitigate some of the privacy issues. So there's a landscaping plan, and I think that's the last slide, that we kind of eliminated more decorative planting at the base of the pool, and are suggesting that we actually, one of the aspects of this project is restoring the hillside. Currently, there's an artificially benched area that represents the rear yard, and we're pulling the natural topography up to meet the swimming pool. And then part of that could be these deciduous native trees, deciduous oaks that would populate the base of the swimming pool that would provide screening and privacy. In terms of noise, I don't think noise travels not just in one direction, travels in two directions. There's currently a deck. I think that a lot of the activity of the existing deck happens on the main floor, which is also kind of further projected out into this rear yard that we're pulling back. So most of the activities are actually going to happen on a lower kind of aspect of the property. And I don't know. There's no sound barriers or anything like that that we propose. It's just an outdoor, place for recreation. In terms of safety, we've built a number of swimming pools on hillsides that, has to go through rigorous engineering, and, I just don't think that the issues that have been raised about safety aren't kind of part of the building code naturally, and I think that there's a mutual kind of benefit for having a safe structure out there, and so there's going to be a lot of resources put into supporting the pool, essentially. So I think that does that hopefully answer your question? Yeah.
I have a question about the building coverage, because it's already non-conforming, but it's becoming even greater. Why is the building coverage is 3,004 existing? It says 14.3%. With this project, it increases to 15.5%, but the code standard is 10%. So I'm wondering why. I understand, the need for a variance because the you don't really have a setbacks that work. But why is the building coverage expanded? I mean, because it's already non-conforming, and it's not very typical to something that's non-conforming to exacerbate something that's non-conforming.
Yeah, I think that we had I think in the initial proposal to APR, they asked us to reduce the building coverage to under 15%, which was, I think, part of a zone that doesn't have as many limitations on it. So the current building coverage is within a less than 1%, I think, of what's there now. But we were able to reduce it and pull it under the 15%. We were originally at 16.2%, and we pulled it back to 14.1%. And a lot of that had to do
But
with.
is it 14.1? This shows it 15.5, and that
I'm
the
not sure what you're looking at.
existing is 14.3.
She's looking at the table on the staff report. The existing building coverage is 14.3, and the proposed is 15.5.
I mean, we took an effort. I wrote a summary of all the changes that we made after the first ADR. And, it's possible that there's a typo there, but I think that the accuracy in our analysis after that first ADR meeting would be what I am relying on, which, like I said, our initial proposal from what's there existing went up to 16.2, and we were able to reduce it based on the suggestions of one of the ADR members to bring it under 15 or to 15%, and brought it to 14.1. So that's where we are. We're at 14.1%.
Can you confirm that, Rebecca? I mean,
Yeah,
to me, that changes quite a bit, because it's already an ask of a variance, but that may be reasonable, but to increase the non-conforming is in addition. And so if in fact they're at 14.1, that's relevant to me.
Well, I mean, it's got to be increasing because adding a whole pool and it.
But it's, yeah, they're decreasing a lot of the decking, which counts.
But isn't the pool area looked, when I eyeballed it, like it would be an addition? Somewhat in that range.
Yeah, there's, well, like I say, we took some careful measurements of this, I think, and concentrated our effort based on the comments. And when I feel pretty confident that the 14.1% building coverage is accurate. So.
Councilmember McMillan?
I was just going to say the staff report at the bottom of page 7 says the proposed building coverage of 15.5% is not substantially more than the 15% maximum building coverage allowed for a zoning district that is more typical of the subject half-acre lot. So, I mean, even if the 14.1 is not accurate, what the staff is saying is that going from 15 to 15.5 is not a significant change.
Right, because I also have located the letter from Andrew Fisher dated May 2nd, 2022. And in the letter, it states that building coverage has been reduced to 14.1 from 16.2. So at the first ADR meeting, it was 16.2. It's just not reflective on the plan, so
That's
we
fine.
can add a condition to say that the building coverage shall not exceed 14.1%. So we are making
Well,
sure
maybe
that we're covered.
14.3, the existing. I think it shouldn't exceed the existing, you know, I don't,
Okay.
I mean, I don't think they have to be required to
Yeah,
go less, but they shouldn't exceed the existing.
Right.
Sure, yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
okay. So,
can I-
questions or there,
Yeah.
should we bring back to the council level?
I did want to ask a
Yes.
question. So our hillside lot ordinance has what I believe is a crazy provision, which is it says that retaining walls shall not be taller than 6 feet in height. It also says that anything that says a shall is mandatory and anything that says a should is not mandatory. And we had this where, on this other property, where, you know, we ended up with a unwinding way. And we talked about, you know, amending this thing because it seemed likely, I mean, the topography was such, it seemed likely that we were gonna end up with a retaining wall taller, and we did, and then they had to come in for an after-the-fact permit and seek variance. And so I am wondering about that because I'm not sure, the variance that was requested doesn't seem specific to the retaining wall. And I'm not sure if there's a way of looking at it as different than a retaining wall, but it kind of seems like a retaining wall.
It's actually, I mean, hopefully I'm not dealing with semantics here, but it's the wall that we're proposing at the base of the pool is 30 inches below the pool deck. That's that stone or masonry planter wall is what we're calling it. So that's an artificially kind of raised terraced wall that kind of helps, you know, by stepping back also 3 feet away from the deck, it helps to kind of terrace that view of the pool from below. So it's actually a raised structure that we're using for planting. It's not really retaining, we're kind of filling it with material that would, you know, act as a plant. The reason we have it 30 inches below the deck also is so that we could eliminate the need for a railing, a safety railing at the edge of the pool. So,
Well, what's between like the pool, I mean, I thought it was pool, deck, wall, but what's between, am I wrong? And is there, it's,
maybe not. Maybe we can look at, you want to look, I think it's A3.0, it's an elevation. It might even have the section on there that illustrate the concept.
But it's, there wasn't really a good picture of what do you see from the bottom, you know, but you're
Yeah.
concerned that it's the bottom, that
I'm not-
wall is 7 feet high.
I'm
at
not
one part.
concerned, I'm just wondering it's a consistency thing. I think we should change the ordinance, but I'm just wondering if we can think of it as something other than a wall, because the ordinance reads like all retaining walls have to be under 6 feet, which is really binds us. You know, when we like a project and want to say yes, and then we've got an ordinance that is a hard no. So I'm willing to think of this as something other than a wall, but I want to point that out. And also, you know, yeah, so that's helpful. So what the barrier between the decking or the pool
Yeah.
is the planting area?
Yeah, so that it's kind of represented there with kind of iconic, oh, thank you. So this area here is the stone wall at the base of the pool. The pool deck level's up here. This is a waterfall edge. The waterfall edge is 30 inches in back of this wall. This is I call this a terraced planter wall. So if you didn't have any plants in it, you know, it doesn't necessarily need to be retaining anything. It's kind of more of just the structure below the edge of the pool. That's it in section right there. The section's taken through the middle of the pool, you know, at the highest point at which the grade reaches that outer wall effectively. So if this wall were not here, we would be required to have a 42-inch high safety railing up at this level here. So this was a way to help mitigate the need for that, but also I think to help, again, terraces are very effective ways to reduce the height and presence of a wall. So that's the purpose of this. So I'm not really quite sure if it's a retaining wall in the traditional sense of that.
Since it's higher, should there be a hedge planted in front of it or something? Is that what you're wondering?
No, I
hide it?
wasn't. I thought the treatment looked good in the design and the landscaping. I thought it all looked good. I was just noticing and remembering this project where we kind of tortured these people twice over this one issue. And we kind of talked about changing the ordinance and never got changed. It's come up a couple other times on other projects. This hillside lot has a 6-foot limit for retaining walls. And so, I mean, we don't have a definition. I did look. We don't have a definition of retaining wall. So I think we could see this as a structure as you proposed. It's not a bad way of going about it, but it still also might be one of those areas of code changes that we want to make so that we're not seeing a great project that we like, want to approve, and then we're feeling boxed in.
Mm-hmm.
I think also because this is terraced with the planter, it, you know, be considered a terraced wall.
Okay, so let's bring it back to the council level and discuss and deliberate unless there are more questions. Any comments? You want to?
I like the project and think it's an improvement over what's there. And I do understand the noise concerns, and I did, you know, drive and look at where that house was in relation to the backyard. But, and I know she's right, canyons make a lot of noise, but I do also just think that, you know, that's a problem in both directions. So I felt like I could support the project.
Councilmember McMillan or Kircher?
I also visited the project. I viewed it from Madonna, from Willow Hill Road. I walked up it. And of course, from the project site, to see the different perspectives. And there is quite a bit in between. I really didn't see a big impingement on privacy, and I saw no change from what there is now. It may even be better because of the illumination of the upper deck. As far as noise is concerned, of course, I'm sympathetic. I live near swimming pools. It can be an issue. It is often an issue. On the other hand, there are many pools in Ross. Many people have them already. Many people are hoping to put them in, and noise, unfortunately, accompanies swimming pools. When the council, since I've been on it, has considered swimming pool issues that required us to go into the setback, we considered noise, but then we had an adjacent property owner. The property owners who are concerned are not adjacent, they're down the hill. The adjacent property is really vacant land. So I don't really see that the setback issue is, it certainly there is a setback issue, but it's not really, there's not a causal connection here between going into the setback and the existence of the noise. What I'm saying is, even if there were 70 feet there, it wouldn't make much of a difference in terms of noise. So I don't really see that as a barrier to granting the application. And then in terms of safety, the concern about destabilizing the hill or whatever, as I understand it, staff will review this thoroughly and will have requirement probably for a geotechnical report and fairly, I would think, robust structural engineering. So there are plenty of checks on this, and there is a mutual interest in safety, not just the people down the hill, but the applicants want to make sure that their pool and their house are not somehow subject to some landslide. So while I appreciate there could be negative impacts, I don't think they're undue impacts in connecting with this project. And so I would be inclined, or I am inclined, to support the approval of design review, issuance of a hillside permit or hillside lot permit, and the variances that are requested.
Councilmember McMillan?
Yeah, I agree with Councilmember Breckus and Kersher. I think it is a really unique situation in that the adjacent landowner actually supports the project, and the people who are concerned about it are 150 feet away from where the pool and the new decks will be built. I also think that by moving that really high deck back and eliminating all those trellises, it enhances the whole overall appearance of the house from both the Willow Hill owners when they drive by, but also the Madrona, is that what it's called, Madrona, that street, those owners as well. Noise is an issue. Believe me, I know all about noise being an issue. But people need to have swimming pools, and it's not right on the other people on the other street. And then I agree with what Councilmember Kersher said about the various layers of safety protection for the downhill owners in terms of soils report, engineering, structural, all that. And everyone has insurance, the homeowner has insurance, the town will do, I know, a very thorough job to ensure that the structure is safe. So, I appreciate the concerns of the neighbors, but I think the homeowner is entitled to have a pool and an enhanced living situation. So I'm in support of the project.
Thank you. Yes, I also recognize the neighbors' concerns. I think that, as Councilmember McMillan pointed out, that and Councilmember Kersher, the variance with respect to the setbacks is not such a stretch, given that the pool is not abutting a neighbor's house. There's quite a bit of space there. And I respect that there isn't an increase in the nonconformity. I think that that's very important. I think it's one thing to request a variance for something that doesn't fit, but to exacerbate something that's already nonconforming, I would find it difficult to support that. It's not the case. So thank you very much for clarifying that. The only concern I might have is that I'm a little afraid that once it's finally built, it still might look somewhat massive from the bottom, but the town, the ability to request landscaping up to 3 years after the project is completed. So if it may look just fine, but if it doesn't, the council could ask for a couple of shrubs to be planted, to hide, especially like that 7-foot part of the wall. So knowing that, I can also support it as designed, as planned. So is there a motion?
I'll move to approve.
All right, how do you vote, Councilmember Breckus?
Aye.
And Councilmember Kircher?
Aye.
Councilmember McMillan? And Mayor Robbins?
Aye.
And the motion passes unanimously.
Okay. We have one more project, and this is, oh, that's right, we need to bring back beach. Sorry. Oh, really? Thanks.
You just won?
Sorry. Read it. Now it's like, I get the weekend back. So we are now moving on to item number 19, 5 Ames Avenue, design review, accessory dwelling unit permit, and demolition permit. And again, Town Planner Markwick, thank you.
Good evening once again. There we go. The project before you tonight is located at 5 Ames Avenue. The lot is a corner lot located on Ames and Upper Ames. Tonight, the applicant requests approval of design review to construct a new 2-story structure comprising an accessory dwelling unit at the lower floor and an open-air cabana at the upper floor. They're also requesting to remodel and expand an existing pool house above an existing garage, to renovate the exterior of the main residence, construct a new front yard fence and gates, and rehabilitate the landscaping. Nonconformity permit is required to enlarge, extend, reconstruct, or structurally alter existing nonconforming structures involving no increase to the total floor area. The ADR, Advisory Design Review Group, reviewed the project at 2 public hearings. On April 19th, 2022, the ADR group reviewed the project and had comments regarding the roof on the cabana, the overall mass on the project, the amount of fenestration on the pool house, the underground storage, and the design of the driveway gate. In response to comments received, the applicant reduced the height of the pool house by 3 feet. The eaves of the cabana were reduced by 1 foot, the main house porches were reduced, and windows were altered to provide more screening and for privacy. The basement area was shifted to the west side of the garage from the cabana. The pool deck retaining wall was moved 5 feet uphill so that it receded into the hillside more. Landscaping was added to address privacy and screening concerns. As a result of the ADR meeting on May 19th, the applicant has modified the plans to include a new roof on the main house. At that ADR meeting, they reviewed it and they did not have a unanimous recommendation for the project. The ADR group discussed the changes and for clarity separated the project into 2 components, one being the cabana roof and 2, the main house roof. Their comments are sort of summarized in your staff report. I won't get into the details of them. I think you have them in front of you. Tonight, the applicant is asking for a design review permit, demolition permit, and a nonconformity permit. The public comments received from property owners at 2 Ames and 6 Ames who are in opposition to the project. Concerns include the height of the pool house and the general concern about the mass, height, and loss of privacy. Tonight, as the plans have been amended to reflect the ADR comments, specifically the roof of the main house, staff recommends that the council approve the resolution before you, and I am available for questions or
So are there any questions from council members for Rebecca? Councilmember McMillan.
I know there was a lot of discussion during ADR about the roof of the home. And I wasn't sure where ADR ended up on the roof. Can anyone see the roof of the home? I mean, does it really matter what the roof of the home looks like?
Well, it does matter what a roof of a home looks like. However, in this case, no one can see the roof from the street because part of this project includes sort of to modernize the exterior of the home and to create these large eaves. And so from the street, no one can see the roof. From above, no one can see the roof. I think the architect can get into sort of more of the details and the perspectives of that, but so there was 3 ADR members at the meeting, and one could support the project with the roof as it is. One abstained from voting because he just couldn't, I think, architecturally agree on having the juxtaposition of the 2 architectural styles. And one of the other members asked for a new roof.
That's very clear.
Yeah, and left it up to you guys.
Okay,
They
thank you.
made sure to
Thank
comment
you.
on it.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm still uncertain about the roof, and I'm
Sure.
looking at the plans that we received, page A3.3, which seems to show a flat roof. And without regard to the eaves. Is there still a pitched roof then on top? It's just that it's not visible from the street? Or for that matter, from the houses across the street, one of which is the 2-story house?
As a result of the second ADR meeting, the architect has changed the plans to reflect the comments of the ADR and is now proposing a flat roof to match the architectural style of the pool house and the cabana. So they listened to the ADR comments and feedback.
So now the roofs are consistent.
Correct.
So what we're left with then as issues are the concerns about particularly the cabana roof and perhaps still the pool house.
Yes.
And the fact that all 3 of those structures together present more of a presence, more of a
Yes, a
horizontal
cohesive
presence.
architectural presence, yes.
Yeah.
I have some questions.
Go ahead.
So I'm sorry, A3.3 shows a roof, and you're saying that roof that I'm seeing on A3.3 is not the roof that we're proposing?
I am not saying that. This is the roof on A3.3 is not a roof that the ADR saw. This roof on A3.3 is a result of the comments from the last ADR meeting.
Okay, that was one. Another question I had is, can you show addresses of where these people are that, I understood one was across the street, and where is the other property owner? Is it?
I can pull up a map here. Hold on. Okay, can you see this map? So here's 5 Ames. This is 2 Ames here. Four, 6. So here's our subject property here. 5. This is 2 Ames, 4 Ames, and 6 Ames.
And then, the other issue that I continue to be confused by is the cabana area being counted for lot coverage and FAR?
It is not being counted for FAR. because it is not enclosed.
Well, so the definition for FAR is the floor area of the building. And building is specially defined as meaning any structure having a roof supported by columns or walls and intended for the use of any person. So I think that we have to call it a building, and then we go to floor area ratio definition, which means the floor area of the building or buildings on a lot. And so it's being counted for lot coverage. You say it's been counted for lot coverage, but it has, and I don't know, maybe it still satisfies that, but I do understand for floor area, the way one measures floor area is you measure it from the enclosed areas of the
Building
walls.
right.
But that just doesn't take account the prior sentence, which is we do count floor area of buildings, and buildings are special defined. So then you could come and say, well, how do we count it when there aren't the exterior faces of the exterior walls? I mean, I think it's kind of an unusual circumstance because honestly, in my 10 years on council, I have not seen a cabana proposed like this.
That floor area put them over the FAR?
That I don't know, I don't know. I mean, but I also, in some ways I'm not like, I did have a concern about how much massing it had. I did, and I don't like to make decisions based on how many neighbors object because I feel like you shouldn't get the benefit of a nice neighborhood, or maybe that's not the way to put it, of a neighbors all being friendly with you, or nor should you be decided based on neighbors not being friendly with you, because you kind of have no control over that. So I don't, I was curious as to where people were just because of their perspective, and it is kind of interesting to me that both people are facing the part of the project that is not really expanding that much. And yet, I think it was the point at which I got to the cabana that I was like, oh, that seems really large, and it starts to feel a little bit like a compound. And I just had concerns about that, and then I would like to understand. I mean, I think that arguably one could or should count floor area of that, or if we're not going to, then we should certainly memorialize that interpretation so others get the benefit of it, so we're consistent.
So for the roof, I mean, we didn't get clear direction from ADR about the roof of the cabana. Isn't that correct? I mean, when I was listening to the meeting, the video, I mean, the three who were at the last meeting, one said the roof was too tall, one said he'd like to see the roof go away, and they said it would be a lot less imposing if they took the roof off. So we're in kind of an awkward position because usually ADR gives us much clearer guidelines, and we were, looking at what 5 people said in April and what 3 people said in May, but clearly whether or not there's a roof is one of the issues that I guess we have to settle, which is kind of awkward because we don't usually settle issues. We usually have our settle issues. And the other is, was the color something we were expected to settle? Should it be off-white or that darker gray that they have? Is that something that we should be addressing?
Yeah, I think it's certainly in your purview because there was not a formal recommendation from the ADR, so any of the design review criteria is under review tonight.
Okay.
The color of the house?
The 2 new buildings, the house is sort of a gray, but the 2 new ones, I believe, are proposed as an off-white. And that was brought up at one of the ADR meetings. And again, there just wasn't clear direction from ADR for us. So we're doing more than we usually do, and it's a little awkward, but, well, do you have another question?
I guess I just wonder if one did count the square footage of that structure as FAR, where would it be? 'Cause it
Well,
does certainly read,
sorry.
I'm sorry, it just does read like a building, in an open air building. But
If it has a roof, it reads like
yeah,
a building.
but I'm not like, I was not opposed to it. It did feel too large. And, you know, it acts as an overhang for the ADU. I don't know if you noticed that. But when and maybe it's also partially the storage, I mean, being added as well, that I just was like, oh, wow, this is a huge space this is occupying. And it's pretty design, and you know, we hate to get people to this point and then second guess it, but it seemed, you know, it seemed a little inconsistent with what I've seen before in terms of lot usage.
Other questions? Councilmember McMillan?
I was just, I'm recalling that we had a similar issue about whether some kind of a
Sun structure.
on Morrison.
Mhm.
And I don't remember how it was resolved. I think it was not counted as a structure.
Yeah, and it was louvers, and so it read more like decking, and it was also kind of a hard one because of that. And again, I'm not really opposed to it. I mean, I really like the decking louvers that those people proposed, but I think we need to just at least have the acknowledge that there's this space that we're kind of going between.
Other questions before we open it up to the applicant and the public? All right, so let's, so the applicant and their architect have 15 minutes. You can start speaking, or you can listen to public comment first and then offer your comments in response to that. Would you like to start, or would you like to see if there's any public comment? Fine. So Linda, any members of the public commenting? I don't see anyone here in person.
No. Mayor.
Anyone online?
No.
Okay. All right.
Good evening, Mayor Robbins and council members. I'm Ken Patton, designed this project for the Swires who are here tonight. You bring up a lot of good points. I'll try to pretty quickly focus on the issues at hand. The house was built in the 60s, and the exterior is mostly unchanged since then. Well overdue for an upgrade. The Swires wanted to modernize it and make the property more functional for just the way they're using it currently. And other than the new ADU, you know, all the proposed uses are in existing locations, and as you've heard, don't require any variances. As far as I'm aware, the 6 Ames and the 2 Ames letters originally were prior to the ADR hearings. I don't know if they're still having issues in 6 Ames. 2 Ames, the Livermores, we worked for months with them. Their main issue was the pool house. In fact, none of the neighbors at that point you mentioned the cabana as an issue for them. It's hard to see from the street. It's covered by a lot of trees on Upper Ames. So the issues for the Livermores, as I understand, because we worked with them, was really about the pool house because it looked directly to their yard. And as a result of working with them, we did lower the roof 3 feet. We reduced the windows that were facing their property, and we added louver panels to increase the privacy. They seemed pleased with those adjustments that we made. In the end, they're just not fans of modern design, and so be it. But we did our best to work with their practical concerns, which are always a challenge when they bought a house that's below a house that sits above them. So we worked with them, but it's, you know, it's an existing pool house, existing windows. Everything's there is just trying to be updated. The cabana, like I said, there had been no comments from the neighbors at that point. it did, and I agree that it is a little unusual, and the reason is, frankly, COVID. The choirs have grown to understand, as we all have, the importance of the flexibility of moving family function outdoors. And can we go to A2.1, Rebecca? Thanks. So the existing pool deck, existing pool house, and this is where their outdoor dining, barbecue, sitting, all happens here. It's all well within the setback. That's the way they've been doing it this whole time, and it's just they're going to a lot of expense to upgrade the property. You know, it's kind of a new world. I mean, all they want to do is, we worked for months with staff to ensure that this was not considered building. It's not FAR. It doesn't contribute to the lot coverage because it's already over the ADU. But it's literally just a floating thin horizontal roof on minimal spindly pipes needed just to hold it up. And we literally spent months working with staff to have it determined by them that it was not qualify as a building. But we simply would like to have a more permanent cover over the uses they already enjoy there within the setback, just so that it's just more practical. You know, they can just make it better. It's like the restaurants need a place at times. This is the same. It's starting to. I'm hearing this from other clients. You know, this outdoor flexibility is really important. So because it's so hidden, you know, between the trees and landscape architect Brett Ikes is, I think, available if you have any questions for him. But he's added a lot of screening, so it's not even going to really be visible from the streets. Additionally, across the closest neighbor across the street, the Conikers at 3 Upper Ames have written a letter of support for it. So they're the ones most impacted. Could you go to A3.2, Rebecca? So you can see this is up at the pool deck level. There's just these steel columns, and then it's just this flat horizontal. And what you don't see is all the tree is pretty much just going to disappear to the trees. And there's an image here, you probably can't see it that well here in your packet. It's a similar idea. It's just literally, and you know, it's just taking lessons from, you know, almost restaurant design and just trying to create a permanent roof with no just posts needed to hold it up, no intention of trying to enclose it. They don't need more enclosure. They just need a cover. So for literally the outdoor open air family functions. If we could go, so the main house, can you go to the, can you show both old and the new on the A0.1? Or you could toggle. Yeah, one of the later ones. A0.1. Yeah, so this is where we were at the previous ADR, and we're redoing. So all of the, you know, the new architecture is really just to freshen it up, lighten up, make it a little modern. It's very simple. It's all smooth, sort of light gray plaster. We've got deep overhangs, and we're redoing the porch in a more modern way. So it's got this projecting roof that projects out. So from the street, very hard to see this roof. So that was one of the reasons we were proposing this. I think in another world where it was a brand new building and it was down lower and you're looking straight on it, the way this elevation is, it's just, it's kind of deceiving, but we need to show the reality to scale. You're not really going to see this roof once we build the lower porch roof. And so, as Rebecca said, we had 3 council members. There really wasn't agreement. The chair of the committee said, I can't support this project without you putting a flat roof on it. So we've had, been through a lot of months in the process. The Swires are, if we really think we need the flat roof, then the Swires are willing to do it, but it's not their preference. This is not they're not gutting the house. The interior of the house is intact. So I cannot pretend that the early estimates are it could cost up to $500,000 adding to the project. You're tearing off the roof that's 40 feet by 70 feet. It's got all the lights and all the ceilings, and you're exposing all the interior to the weather. Like it's a pretty dramatic thing to ask them to do, considering you can't really see the roof. But they sit here, willing to do it if this is what it takes to get approved. They would actually ask that this version get approved tonight. This is why we were showing both. So we're sort of at your mercy on that. And I think I've sort of covered.
Can you speak to the color difference?
Yeah, the color is supposed to all be the same. It's just a light gray.
So it's not off-white. There was
It's
some
not
point.
white. It's going to be a light gray, probably a little lighter than what's there now, but we just want something that is sort of like neutral, but quiet. And there's a lot of shadows that are going to be from all the exterior porches and overhangs, and lots of planting, and surrounded by all these trees. And we just want something that's sort of a non-color, so it just kind of recedes like a wet stone kind of plaster. Does that help?
Thank you.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? And yes? Well, because we didn't get such direction from ADR, I felt like it's okay for us to question during the public hearing. So if you have another question for the architect, yes, and then we'll bring it back to the council level.
Yes, I keep coming back to the roof because it's not clear to me what the difference is between the 2 plans, the one we've seen as the so-called flat roof option and this option that we see here. I can see the roof, but I've been told that, well, from the street level you can't. So what is the angle of the view here? Because I am seeing a roof.
Yeah, this is straight on. So yours, it's like you're up in a cherry picker looking at it up high, but down from, I don't know if you remember looking at it from the street, you can actually, from the street, you look at the string lines, you can really tell that you're not going to see the roof from the street. So
neighbors wouldn't see it either because they're down low, they're down the top.
Correct.
Can you just share how large those actual eaves are?
Yeah, and so
I think that would help put it in perspective.
if you go to the old, the new ones I sent you, 3.2.
3.2?
Yeah.
If you look at L1.1, there's some pictures also of the house.
So they're 7 feet. So the covered porch on on the house will be the eaves of the roof, of the existing roof, which act as the covered porch, are 7 feet long. So if you're underneath it on the road, looking up.
So you would see the bottom of the eave and you would see the border of the eave, but not the actual roof.
No.
And so what, in the picture of the flat roof, it looks like the border at the top is a little bigger.
Well, so quickly, just here's a section through. Could you zoom in like you had before? So if we're allowed, here's the existing roof shape, and there's an existing porch, and the existing roof slopes down right now. So we're going to remove that, do a more modern flat one, as Rebecca says, project 7 feet, which is going to tie that look of the house into the new building. So the street is way down here. So when you look up, you're not going to see the roof from the street. And so to answer the question about the flat roof, could you go to the new 3.2? Old files.
Go to the other
In the other
plan.
tab, yeah.
Oops, sorry, here we go. No, yeah. What page?
3.2.
There we go.
Yeah, you could zoom in on that a little. So to answer your question, what the other proposal is, what we have to do is, you can see here's the dashed is existing roof. We'd have to tear that off. This porch roof, the new one is in the same location. We'd have to add new structure for the flat roof with a little bit of parapet wall to basically conceal it all. So that is why the elevation looked different between the two. Does that answer?
Excuse me, so is it correct then, if you view this from the street, you're still going to see the same thing? You're going to see the eave and nothing above the eave from the street?
Either way, yeah, you wouldn't. In fact, you might catch part of this parapet more.
A little bit?
Because it's taller than the existing roof.
I see.
So, when we put the stories poles and the strings up, and we stepped back and looked at it, we were able to sort of realize that there's no reason to go to all that trouble and expense to tear the roof off. But like we said, we're sort of felt a little up against the ADR recommendations. So we kind of come to you with both of them and let you decide.
Okay, so unless there are other questions, let's bring it back to the council. It sounds like, I was going to suggest we say first house roof as is or would change, and then cabana roof, does it stay, at what height, or does it not stay? And the rest of the project seems to be approved by ADR, and there's not much for us to do. So house roof, I mean, I would just leave it. I'm sorry, go ahead,
Yeah, I
Councilmember McMillan.
agree. I understand an architect wanting to have, integrity, but if no one can see it, I don't really understand the point.
It's right, it's aesthetics,
really
it's a lot of money.
wasteful and expensive, and it's bad for the environment, and it's
Okay.
not necessary.
Others agree? Okay, so house roof we leave. The other is more complicated because I certainly got the sense from many of the ADR meetings that many of the ADR participants that they feel like it reads as too much bulk if the cabana has a roof. And I don't know where to go with that. It started out at 12 feet. Is it 10 feet or 10 feet? But, there still was a sense at the May meeting, it's too tall. Some said no roof. So I'm not sure where we go with that, but we need to make a decision about the roof.
I'm sorry, I have a technical question now. Close to the public, but maybe Rebecca, you can answer. Can you tell me
the 10 to 9, is that the height? It went from 10 feet tall to 9 feet tall?
So 12 to 10.
Oh, 12 feet to 10 feet tall. And then what is the dimensions of the cabana? Because it seemed, there was one measurement in there, but then that didn't even measure the roof overhang. And it looks like, if the pictures are right, the cabana actually goes to the roof overhang, and it didn't measure that.
I actually
area.
do not know the answer to the area of the cabana roof. Do you know that answer, Ken? Yeah, the roof area. Okay. Yeah, so it's 1,100 square feet.
Wait, I'm sorry, where are you?
I'm on A 2.3. So if you see where it says building coverage and it breaks it down, existing cabana NA, proposed 1,100.
Okay, but just so we know, he's not counting the 2 feet eaves on all 4 sides, which is per the code. If you don't have to count 2 feet. Here, it's all eaves because it's an open air thing, but I just want to point that out,
Uh-huh.
if I'm seeing that correctly. But then, oh, okay, so anyway.
I got the sense from ADR that they feel like the cabana roof is too much, that everything else is fine. I would kind of lean towards that because it's the sense I got from them, but what do others think? Oh, yes, go ahead.
It did seem to be an issue for ADR. And yet, when I look at these pictures, I see trees in front of it. So I'm not quite clear who is going to bother. Originally, I thought, well, perhaps there's a sort of a compromise here where the roof of the cabana is there. It just doesn't come all the way out to the front of the building, all the way to what would be the east side of the building, I guess, on Ames. But still, you still have most of that shade, and the sun comes up in the east, and it's not that strong in the morning, and maybe you want a little sun in the morning. If you're out there in the afternoon, as the angle of the sun, you still have the shade where you want it. But I'm just going to make it a suggestion. I'm not inclined to make it a requirement because, again, the trees seem to block the whole thing. But if it were an issue, or if other council members think it's an issue, or the owners later decide to do something to placate the neighbors, I don't know. Maybe that's a possibility. But otherwise, I don't think I would be inclined to say it would have to be completely removed. I think a cover is a great amenity. I mean, it's fun when you're out there for a while. It can be a bit much, particularly in summer, because when you're in the shade, it's quite pleasant. And the alternative is you start putting umbrellas up, and then the wind comes up, like it did yesterday afternoon and the day before and the day before. Good luck with the umbrella. So that would be my reaction as far as the cabana is concerned.
Oh, who else? Julie.
Yeah, I looked at the comments from ADR, but there were only 3 people on ADR, right? It was
In May.
Laura and Stro and Krusnit. Yeah, well, I don't think, if the people across the street at the Conikers, if they are not objecting, and it's going to be pretty much concealed by the existing foliage, and if it's not, then the town can ask them to put in more screening. I kind of feel like they should be able to do what they want with their property.
Councilmember Cool.
Me too.
Elizabeth.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, my normal pro bent is let property owners do what they want. When I went out there, I could totally understand their desire for the shade.
It just also, you know, I started feeling like, God, what projects is this like, and what precedent are we setting? But I do also appreciate that shade structure that we approved up in Winship Park is a good one that goes in line with that. And it also, the fact that it's not really facing other neighbors is a little easier.
Was that a yes?
So I can get on board with it too.
Color, I think we were, you know, the concern about the off-white has already been addressed. Are there other issues to discuss as a group? So it sounds like there's a consensus to approve it as it's come before us.
Except for the roof. We're going to agree.
For the roof,
I'm on
yes.
board with them
Leaving the roof.
not spending $500,000 on a roof nobody can see.
Yes. Okay.
So we'll insert sheets into the plans as directed.
So I'll move to approve the item as amended with respect to the roof.
I'll second.
All right, let's take the vote. How do you vote, Councilmember Breckus?
Aye.
And Councilmember Kircher?
Aye.
Councilmember Cool? Aye. And Councilmember McMillan? Mayor Robbins?
Aye.
And the motion passes unanimously.
Great. So let's move on to the next item. Item 20, election of mayors. The guidelines for how we elect a mayor are pretty Spartan. It just says a mayor is elected once a year, I think, by the council. We have sort of a gentleman's agreement that we will rotate that position, and when new people come on the council, we generally add them into the rotation in the order of votes. So the person who got the most, if like new people come on, the highest vote getter is the next in line, next in line, next in line. And so if we keep doing it well, the mayor, that's pretty simple. You know, there's the rotation. As far as Mayor Pro Tem, if we keep with that, we have our current order, and basically it means that with 5 council members and 4 slots, you're not always assured of being mayor your first year, but you are like by your second term. But you know, that doesn't absolutely have to be that way. But if we stick with what I think historically has been the case, let's see. So at the beginning, so 2 years ago, Julie, you were mayor, right? Then me, then Beach, and then Elizabeth, you were mayor before Julie. So that's sort of our order. Elizabeth, Julie, me, Beach. If we add in, you know, if that's sort of the order, then for Mayor Pro Tem, does that put Bill following you, Elizabeth? I mean, I guess so, if that's the way we've usually done it, but it doesn't have to be that way, but that's how we've usually done it. I think there's probably no question about mayor, because we've rotated that in your Mayor Pro Tem. Does anybody have any concerns about that? So a motion to nominate a
Move
mayor?
to make Beach mayor.
Mayor, if I may, before, can you open up public comment?
Oh, sorry, is there any public comment?
Who?
Oh. Okay, then we will
No.
bring it back to the council for a vote.
Move to make Beach.
Oh, did you already make the motion? Oh, yeah, we did. Yeah, sorry. Is there a motion?
Yeah, move to make Beach the mayor for next year.
Okay.
And I'll second.
Need to vote on that? All right, how do you vote, Councilmember Breckus?
Aye.
And Councilmember Kircher?
Aye.
Councilmember Cool, Councilmember McMillan, and Mayor Robbins.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes.
So if we stick with that rotation, new people adding, coming in and being, following the four, that would put Elizabeth as mayor pro tem. Is there any discussion about that?
I would like to just understand this better because I didn't understand it, and I know Mayor Robbins tried to explain it to me. I still don't understand it or the rationale for it, the way it's applied, and I'm not objecting to it. I just want to know what the "it" is. If I had to write this down, I couldn't, and I spent 5 years drafting laws. So, and I want to make it clear, I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm not objecting to anything. I think Elizabeth Breckus was the mayor when I joined the council. I think she did a great job and would do a great job as the vice mayor. But what I assumed when I came on the council, without really, I didn't inquire, I just made an assumption, was that since Elizabeth was the mayor, then I would go in line behind everybody else, and Elizabeth then, having been the mayor, would then go to the end of the line. So what I didn't understand was how that works, or what is the rationale, or why does it work that way?
I mean,
I wasn't the mayor the year that you came on council. No, I don't think
You
that's
were.
true.
No.
well, you
were.
might have overlapped by a meeting, but I think the thinking was existing people are all ahead of anybody new, and they stay in that order. And so if Elizabeth was mayor, she would have been mayor, like finishing a term,
She was.
but
yes.
not really your term. Like when you came on, Julie was mayor. So I think that's the thinking, is existing people are ahead of anybody new, and they keep rotating through their order. That may or may not be a good plan, but I think that's what's been happening through the years. Is that,
I think you mean pre-existing people, right? Because we all, Teach
Pre-existing.
and Elizabeth and I all came on, were sworn in at the same time. But unlike me, both Teach and Elizabeth had been members of the council. So, yeah, continuing existing, sure.
right?
Okay.
Beach.
If that's the rule, that's fine.
I agree with you that it's not spelled out, and I don't think it can be spelled out. Where that ends us, I don't know. But this is an unusual situation. I mean, for example, quite the contrary, when I came on, Rupert Russell was the mayor, and because of various circumstances, I directly became the mayor pro tem as soon as I joined the council. Well, it was because there were 3 of us elected, and there was one other person who had just been mayor. There's not a logical explanation for it.
Well, and then when we ran, the 3 of us, I had the most votes, but we stuck with the order.
No, I had the most.
Not the second time.
Oh,
I had the most votes, but we stuck with the order.
but the first time is the only one that matters.
All right,
So-
okay. I'm sorry, I should have read this. I won't get any sleep. Okay. All right, I think I now understand it with that clarification.
I do want to be the mayor pro tem. I mean, I guess because I'd like to go off. I'm not running again, as you all know. I'd like to go. Yeah, I
Actually elected, huh?
I think only for that reason that I would. But I do agree it's an awkward thing, and maybe our governance committee could have a recommended course of action, because you do want to provide some clarity. And so one thing that you should know, Bill, is the year Katie was mayor, she made herself mayor second time. And it was like at a meeting like this where nobody talked about it and that kind of thing. Maybe she had talked to somebody about it, but She just said,
Talk to me about it.
She talked to me about it.
okay, so,
I was-
so that's
I was
another
the
good
mayor of
reason.
Fort
We should,
Canning.
we should not, we should have a
Totally
policy to
irregular.
avoid both that situation and also, so there's a policy. And then, you know, if you had a reason why you wanted to part, it could be a guideline. It doesn't have to be, you know, whatever, yeah.
I think it's gonna be difficult to write a policy because I don't think we're gonna do the same thing that you did with Branson. You're gonna write something that's gonna be so confused that you have to put a bunch of examples in to tell how it works,
Well,
because
maybe there's a policy we can steal from a town, you know, because there's a lot of 5-member council members.
Actually, the other councils don't seem to follow our pattern at all. For example, Janelle, who's now the mayor of Sausalito, came on when I did. She was the mayor's second year. And so, with Corte Madera, same thing. On the other hand, you know, some of these other jurisdictions, I was just viewing it, and somebody's starting his 5th term. So, I mean, it's all over the place. But I think we're the only town that actually does have sort of a kind of thought out progression. And the town it seems to be more ad hoc. The other possibility is nobody wanted to be mayor during the pandemic. And so it was only the bravest council members who said, okay, I'll do it, and I'll handle all our drop in retail sales revenues and all that. I'm being facetious, but if there is another town we can borrow from, that's fine, but I remain disappointed.
So can I make a motion to appoint Rebecca as the mayor pro tem?
Second?
And we should open public comment for that as well.
Oh. I know, because it comes from on high.
I'm out here in the public all by myself, and I'm just, you know, witnessing that it should be opened.
There is no raised hands, Mayor.
Okay.
Okay, so let's take the vote. How do you vote, Councilmember Breckes?
Aye.
And Councilmember Kircher?
Aye.
Councilmember Cole? Aye. Councilmember McMillan? And Mayor Robbins?
Aye. Right, council correspondence. Does anyone have any correspondence that they'd like to tell us about very briefly? And are there any future council items for next month? Councilmember McMillan.
I just had an idea. We're still getting election results. It seems like the town is fairly divided. I think it's been divided since the whole Branson thing. And I think we as council should explore ways to try to bring the town together. And I have some ideas. I won't discuss them here because God will speak to me and reprimand me. But I was just thinking that maybe we should have that as not for staff to make more work unless staff has ideas, but just have a discussion about how to kind of bring the town together. So that was my first proposed future council item.
I mean, I would support that, you know, as an informal discussion and not as a staff report and anything to come from it.
Okay.
Or you all think it's a good idea, or do you think, I mean, if no one,
all 2 of you want it.
I know, but if there's not more of a general consensus, I don't think we should. I don't know, you're kind of shaking your head, Elizabeth.
Feels like the niceness campaign at Ross School that made everybody feel like they should look in other jurisdictions to buy houses and put kids in school. But I could support, you know, how we handle major projects like that we know could be controversial, and how to, you know, monitor, you know, the process / staff / hiring of consultants / staff report recommendation, with the idea of making improvements to the process, which may have the same effect.
Maybe what we can do, Julie, I mean, I support it. Why don't you and I talk offline? We can figure out what sorts of things we might be discussing and then decide do we, yes, keep it on? Maybe not, maybe in a month or two? It's a
Okay.
tentative yes, but it's not for staff.
I think it's mainly just communication, really, but we can discuss it. Then the other thing that kind of bugged me was the whole gun buyback that Kate Collin had spearheaded, and that we did not participate. But we as a council did not get to decide that we weren't going to participate. And Chief Pata volunteered his time for a whole day. And in all the, Dick Spotswood and the other article in the IJ, Ross was getting slammed. And so I just want to make sure that, when other things like that happen in the future, that the whole council gets an opportunity to weigh in.
I think they just announced it and that was it. I mean, it was, I don't know that there was time for a meeting. I'm not sure. I don't really remember the timing, but yes, I agree. These should be on the agenda. And I think also, okay, but that's not really an agenda item.
No.
Right? Okay.
Well, it may be in the future for some
Okay.
unknown cause that Kate Collins spearheads.
But, okay. Any other future council items?
Well, I'm not 100%, I'm not even 50% happy with the Zoom meeting format for council meetings. I just, it's really nice to be back in person. I enjoy it. I feel like we're at a place in the pandemic where we need to get back here, and it could mean that somebody has to miss a meeting because of, we're gonna get this thing 3 times a year. But, I don't love the Zoom process for us.
So you're
And I
suggesting
feel
we
like
put on the
Zoom
agenda-
was really one of the horrible things about the pandemic for council members and school board members and everything else. And I know that a lot of the school board members are, so yes, that's my proposal, to
Talk about-
eliminate Zoom for the council, not for
On the
ADR
agenda,
and not for the housing element, just for the council,
You're asking it to be
an item,
eliminate Zoom for council meetings.
hybrid Zoom.
So are you saying that council could not participate via Zoom, but the public could? No,
Nobody
so
could.
no public participation
Well, I
via
don't
Zoom.
support that. Oh,
Well, it doesn't matter.
I mean, I'm not
We
supporting
can't
it.
start discussing.
No, I'm saying I don't agree with putting it on the agenda, is what I'm saying.
Oh, sorry.
And Krista,
This morning, I attended a meeting of the Marin County Managers Group, and Nancy Bennett, she's the league division staff person. She announced that the piece of legislation at the state level that was it was going to do something about allowing hybrid, or allowing council members to participate via Zoom or similar technology that kind of going through the legislature had received a lot of opposition from newspaper groups and the ACLU, et cetera. So has now been made into a 2-year bill. So
that's letting council members participate. That's not the public, though.
right, but so it's my understanding that at some point, the ability to have council meetings via Zoom ends when the state emergency ends. And so, but there was this bill that was introduced at the state level to try to make it more of a permanent situation. Well, so thus far, that attempt is now stalled.
Okay.
So whatever you decide to do about whether to have it on the agenda or not, we can certainly work with the town attorney to bring back what's actually happening at the state level. Well,
so does
Well, that raises 2 things. One of them is, I think there were originally 2 different bills for slightly different results, and I don't remember exactly what they were. And I can't remember what the second thing it is that it raises.
Well, the question at hand is, do we want to talk about Zoom meetings, continuing? Do we want to talk about ending hybrid meetings for our council? And Elizabeth says she wants it on the agenda. Does anybody else want to talk about it on the agenda? Really? Oh. Okay, so we have two people who want to put it on the agenda.
And maybe a question for our town attorney, if you can answer this right now. There already an existing item on your consent calendar, and I'm curious if you can have this discussion during that item on the next consent calendar, perhaps.
Yeah, so I mean, you have one item on your consent every month, which is whether or not the council members can take advantage of Zoom. But the way I understand the request is it's two things. One, the council members having that flexibility, but also the public. So if we want to talk about the public having access to hybrid meetings, that should be a combined agenda item with both.
And whether the town council can appear.
Be very convenient sometimes. Right, okay, so that's on. Is there any, are there any other future council items? If not, at 9:52, the meeting is adjourned.